The King's Avatar audiobook by Kevin the King's Avatar Volume 1 The Banished Battle God Chapter 41 Chapter 41 A simple leave when Blue River and the others left the dungeon. Bound Boat and Flower Lantern were still waiting outside. Before the party went up on TV, the two had already prostrated before Lord Grimm in admiration. They were the original party members, and they clearly knew the party's strength. Lord Grimm was 100% the reason that they were able to break the clear record by 5 minutes. Flower Lantern, who had previously doubted Lord Grimm, also felt extremely embarrassed. Finally, he mumbled, "You really are a god. I bow down, I bow down. I was lacking in manners before." On the other side, Bound Boat asked Thundering Light how they cleared the dungeon. Thundering Light spoke, splattering spittle everywhere. Returning Cloud and Lunar Grace repeatedly raised their eyebrows. "Could you be any more ridiculous? If you say it like this, then it seemed like we cleared the dungeon in 10 minutes. Okay, the clear record has been broken." Ye Xiu said to Blue River. Right, strong, strong." Blue River immediately agreed. "Brother," Ye Xiu greedily said. Here, the items," Ye Xiu said. "What items? Oh, look at me. I was so happy I forgot." Blue River finally realized that the other side was talking about the promised items. Bound Boat, the items. Blue River hadn't carried the items on him. Only after Blue River confirmed that they would break the record did Bound Boat go and retrieve the items. In glory, the characters' movement, jumping, and speed were all affected by how much weight they carried. As a result, when going for clear records or engaging in PK, times when they needed to be at their strongest point, players did their best to lighten up their inventory. Bound Boat took the items and asked Lord Grimm to trade. Ye Xiu accepted and the items were put into the trade box. Astonishingly, there were 72 strong spider silk, 2 mithril pendants, and 8 white wolf sharp fangs. What? Ye Xiu didn't understand. This was his initial proposal and wasn't the deal he had haggled for. "Brother, directly beating the clear record by 5 minutes, you don't know how much effort you've saved us," Blue River said. "Oh, so it's like this." Ye Xiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't need these materials to sell. They were all for upgrading the 1,000 chance umbrella. He only needed 24 strong spider silk. Proposing 72 at the start was just to leave some space for haggling. But in the end, the other side was more than happy to give him 72. Who didn't want free stuff? Ye Xiu certainly did, so he bluntly accepted it. Then again, what Blue River said also made a lot of sense. Beating the clear record by 5 minutes, it really did save them a lot of time. Otherwise, if they hadn't, who knew how many times they'd have to contest with the other guilds? "Thanks," Ye Xiu said. "You're welcome." "Brother, look." Right when he spoke half a sentence, he suddenly grew frantic. Left? Why did he leave already? After accepting the items, he actually just directly left the guild. Blue River was just about to ask him to stay in their guild. He gave him more items for 2 reasons. One was to reward him for clearing the dungeon, and the other was because he recognized that he was a super expert and deserved to be bribed. "If only I knew," Blue River thought in grief and indignation. This price had become a business deal when it should have been a way to make friends with him. "What should I look at?" Ye Xiu, who already left, asked Blue River, who had only spoken half a sentence just a moment ago. "Do you have any space on your friends list? Let's work together later," Blue River said without spirit. "Okay," Ye Xiu said. "Brother, do you need to run a dungeon? Are you missing anyone? If you are, just ask me and I'll call people for you," Blue River said. "Oh, I don't need it. I have other things to do. I'll be going first then," Ye Xiu said. Oh, bye. Blue River's cheeks streamed with tears as he sent Lord Grimm off. Thundering Light, Bound Boat, and the others had already seen the "Lord Grimm has left the guild" message in the guild channel. They were all astonished. When they saw him leave, they immediately recovered. "Why did he leave?" Returning Cloud asked. "Work's done, so of course he's going to leave," Blue River said unhappily. "Why didn't we keep him?" Bound Boat asked. With his appum, him leaving was faster than me speaking. Blue River said. This had to do with appum. Everyone was dumbstruck. This Blue River had turned stupid from anger. Roping in this type of expert just relying on benefits won't work. With his skill, coming over to help us would be the same as the benefits we can give. So he didn't have to think twice. It's more important to establish a relationship. Bound Boat said. Right. I originally thought like that, but Blue River gloomily concluded. What had originally been a way to establish a revolutionary friend in the dungeon had become a business transaction. AI, let's use a honey trap. Hurry up and notify the leader to bring some beauties over. Thundering Light said. Cough, cough. Someone coughed. Then let's match him with Lunar Grace. Thundering Light added. Lunar Grace remained silent and only looked at Lord Grim, who hadn't completely disappeared out of sight yet. Lunar, you've been looking in that direction, huh? Could it be you? Flower Lantern circled around Lunar Grace twice. You've already been itching to go at it, Thundering Light said. Lunar Grace didn't notice what he said and calmly said, Don't you guys feel that he's too strong? Everyone was startled and immediately went silent. We're already considered top-tier experts in glory, right? Even if we weren't, Blue River definitely is right. But it looks to me that this guy's still better by a level. Then what level of an expert would he be at? Lunar Grace said. Cough, cough, I haven't played on a low-leveled account in a while, Blue River said. We're all low-leveled, Lunar reminded. His weapon was better than mine. I think it's an orange weapon, Blue River said. He still hasn't changed classes. Lunar reminded again. In short, everyone all had their good and bad points. Fine, I concede. I'm afraid this person's skill is higher than mine. Blue River discovered that he couldn't struggle for his face back. But Glory has so many players, how can there not be some hidden experts? It's not like we haven't seen one. For example, Poplar Beach. Once this name was mentioned, everyone suddenly went silent. They all knew that his was a name that Blue River didn't like. This person was Blue Brook Guild's recent focus of attention. He didn't have much of a name before. But in a short period of time, in the heavenly domain, he showed his strength in all sorts of battles. As the guild placed more and more value on him, his equipment grew better and better. A lot of people in the Blue Brook Guild had already discussed whether the 5 great experts should be updated. Of the 5 great experts, the one who had been compared the most with Poplar Beach was Blue Bridge Spring Snow, Blue River's main account, because the 2 players' classes were the same. They were both Blade Masters. Blade Masters, due to their wuxia-like playstyle, were Glory's most popular class. And after Poplar Beach was discussed about, he wasn't modest at all. He would often show off his damage records, kill records, what expert he beat in the last arena battle, how he single-handedly dueled how many people in a wild area, and so on, in the guild channel. He clearly wanted to show his superiority over Blue Bridge Spring Snow, who almost went and directly challenged him to a duel around. Before that happened, Blue River was ordered to be the leader in the 10th server. In the guild, there were already many rumors saying that this was the guild intentionally giving Poplar Beach a spot by deliberately moving Blue River away. The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 42, Chapter 42. A good that could be bought. Blue River was a person who worried about losing face. Being mocked by Poplar Beach made him feel as if his face would fall off. Finally, he took the initiative to invite Poplar Beach and was ready to compare notes in the arena. Poplar Beach was waiting for this opportunity, so he happily accepted. Members of the same guild often compared notes in the arena, but the members of Blue Brook Guild all knew that this battle wasn't so simple. Whoever won this battle would decide who had the qualifications to be recognized as one of Blue Brook Guild's 5 great experts. The result was that this battle was never completed. At that moment, Blue Brook Guild's leader announced that Blue River would bring members to the Pioneer in the 10th server. Blue River temporarily left the heavenly domain and began busily in the new server. The not-so-happy part was that he was also temporarily put aside. The sudden appearance of Lord Grimm made him think of Poplar Beach. His friends didn't know what to say in response. Silence. Blue River suddenly received a message. He opened it and saw it was from Plantago Seed. Ha ha ha. Why'd the expert suddenly leave after you beat the record? Blue River was startled and then immediately said angrily, "How shameless, you've put a spy into our guild." "Don't be like this, it's not like you haven't put in any spies either," Plantago Seed said. "I still haven't," Blue River said justly and confidently. Mutual spies was indeed common, but because it was only the second day on the new server, Blue River hadn't done so yet. "If you're proper, you'd better not put in any," Plantago Seed messaged. Blue River had a sudden strike of inspiration and replied, "Ha ha, if you've actively recruited our players in, then you can only blame your lame eyes." Plantago Seed received the message and was startled. "What do you mean?" Blue River didn't reply. "Chai, I know you're just trying to scare me. Old Blue, don't use this sort of small trick, it's too childish," Plantago Seed remarked. "I don't have time for you, I'm going to go level," Blue River replied. Blue River went on to do his own business, while Plantago Seed was still standing there confused. When the spy reported to him that Lord Grimm had already left Blue Brook Build, he laughed out loud. While he was preparing to rope him in, he just had to message Blue River. But who would have thought that Blue River would have said such a peculiar line? It seemed as if Lord Grimm had been intentionally let out for the other big guilds to recruit. Plantago Seed felt that it was Blue River deliberately mystifying the situation, but he didn't dare to be absolutely confident. With regards to spies, it wasn't easy to protect against them in this game. Being excessively confused about them would only add to his worries. But Lord Grimm was different. This was a great expert. If he came into the guild, he would definitely be an important figure. He wasn't that type of casual character. If this type of person was a spy, then that would be a disaster. Glory once had a guild that didn't lose to the 3 great guilds in strength, but it was destroyed because of spies. At that time, all of the guild's highly regarded experts were spies from other guilds. Finally, when the spies' influence matured, they unmasked themselves and exposed the truth. A bunch of players and goods left the guild, greatly injuring the guild's strength. But the even deadlier attack was that when the guild began recovering its power, the central core figures also exposed themselves as F-seeking spies. In the end, at a crucial point of time, another batch of people left and they lost more power. Thus, the once powerful guild collapsed. After this event, Glory's guilds were all extremely cautious about their top experts. The bigger the guild, the more cautious they were. Moreover, in the major spy event, the champions did so in the new server. Newly recruited players in the guild would start from the bottom and then slowly slaughtered their way to the heavenly domain. These people were tenacious and worthy of being called Glory's greatest spies. And now this Lord Grimm. He suddenly sprang up in the 10th server and became the focus of attention. This type of person would definitely be fought over by the famed guilds. But was this person a spy? Nowadays, would a spy really be so high-profile? Plantago Seed sighed with sorrow, but still decided to contact Lord Grimm. As long as he took precautions on how much power to give him, then it would be okay. Lord Grimm, who had left Frost Forest, now headed towards Bulls. Frost Forest was located in the southwest border zone. Bulls was a nearby town. No matter what server a player was in, this place was the first place new players from Beginner Village would set foot in, so there was never any lack of liveliness. After Lord Grimm left Beginner Village, he directly ran to Frost Forest and didn't have time to register Bulls as his resurrection location. At this location, after the character died, he would resurrect there. This was one of Glory's rules. Bull's town wasn't big, but it had all of the basic facilities. Ye Xiu let Lord Grimm first go to a warehouse and put in his newly obtained strong spider silk and other materials into there. Seeing that his storage chest had 88 strong spider silk, Ye Xiu could only laugh and shake his head. After leaving 48 strong spider silk there, the rest of the items had all been taken by Ye Xiu to the equipment editor's material library. Right when he was about to go into the equipment editor, a message suddenly leaped up. He opened it and saw that it was from Seven Fields. Congratulations, brother expert. Before, when we were clearing the dungeon, we saw your Frost Forest clear record. How awesome, Seven Fields messaged. Haha, it was nothing. Have you joined Blue Brook Guild? Seven Fields asked. No, I just helped them beat the record, so I only temporarily joined. I've already left, Ye Xiu said. Huh, Seven Fields was astonished. How many times have you run the dungeon? Ye Xiu suddenly asked. 2 times, Seven Fields said. Are you missing a person? I can still run it 3 more times. Ye Xiu suddenly thought to first reach the entry limit. We do, of course we do. Seven Fields was first startled and then immediately recovered from the shock. Brother expert still unexpectedly wanted to dungeon with them. That really was too good. I'll go over right away. Ye Xiu immediately made Lord Grimm leave the warehouse and hurried over to Frost Forest. Seven Fields and the others were only normal gamers and didn't have the skills like Blue Brook Guild's experts did. Ye Xiu would have cleared faster with Blue Brook Guild's people, but he preferred to go with Seven Fields and the others. He saw through the big guild's intent to rope him in. He also knew that with Blue Brook Guild's strength, they could easily provide for the 1,000 chance umbrellas materials. However, joining a guild meant that he would owe some kind of responsibility and commitment to the guild. The guild would provide a party to dungeon, level, and complete quests, but on the other hand, the guild also required that he would have to help others dungeon, level, or complete quests. Ye Xiu didn't want to have his hands and feet tied like this. As for peak experts like him, not joining a guild also meant that he had the chance to cooperate with any guild. Today, he helped Blue Brook Guild set a new clear record. Next time, he could help Herb Garden. People with some ability to judge would realize his value. Every guild that wanted to set a new record would all look for him to help. In this way, staying as a good that could be bought was better than joining a guild and hanging himself on a tree. How could this not be more beautiful? The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 43. Chapter 43. Don't need a cleric. Seven Fields, and the others had also only just left the dungeon. Under that endless night's lead, the second half of the dungeon went by smoothly. From this, it could be seen that this guy's skill was higher than theirs and that he was an extremely experienced expert. But Seven Fields and the others didn't worship him. In fact, they couldn't see it. It wasn't only immersed jade. They themselves had already been poisoned by Lord Grimm. Endless Night was already considered extremely skilled among players, but they couldn't see his skill at all. After they left the dungeon, this guy just stood loftily on one side with a "come on, shower me with praise" look. In the end, he received a message. You have been kicked out of the party. FCK, disgraceful, how could you kick me? Endless Night was infuriated. Didn't you have something to do? Hurry up and go do it, Seven Fields said. Now I don't, Endless Night said. Oh, so sorry, there's no space anyways, we have a friend coming, Seven Fields said. Endless Night heard this and his eyes brightened. He immediately remarked, Is it that Lord Grimm? What does that matter to you? Seven Fields said. In the end, Endless Night refused to leave and shamelessly circled around the 4 of them. Seven Fields felt vexed and had the heart to chop this guy to pieces. But he was an expert from tyrannical ambition, so Seven Fields didn't dare pull off an evil scheme. If he didn't want to leave, then what was his purpose? Seven Fields guessed and came to a conclusion. He couldn't help but feel even more annoyed. To fight with this type of expert, they wouldn't win. With their mediocre strength, they were already lucky to be able to dungeon with Brother Expert a few times. Right now, if a tyrannical ambition expert chose him, would Brother Expert still play with them? They had only known each other for a day and still weren't really friends yet. Right when his thoughts were in turmoil, Lord Grimm's figure had already gradually approached. Immersed Jade had already yelled, "God!" In the game, the louder the voice, the farther it would go. But the problem was that the sound volume depended on the real person to produce. They could imagine Immersed Jade at this moment, whether she was at her house or in an internet cafe, she was truly shouting. This, if there were other people nearby, she'd look quite foolish. Lord Grimm put away his battle lance, which could be considered his greeting. Seven Fields and the others were ready to meet him, but Endless Night ran faster than a rabbit. With a whoosh, he had already rushed forward. "Your Lord Grimm, it's an honor to meet you. I am Endless Night, an expert from tyrannical ambition." Endless Night introduced himself. "Hi," Ye Xiu responded and then turned around to ask Seven Fields, "Your friend?" "That's right, Brother Seven Fields and I became good friends in this dungeon," Endless Night said. "FCK, who are you?" Seven Fields had never seen such a shameless guy. "Brother Seven Fields, don't be like that," Endless Night said. Seven Fields wanted to kick this guy to death. He first gave Brother Expert a party invite while yelling at Endless Night, "We're going, go do your own business." Bring me two," Endless Night repeatedly yelled. How was this an expert? When they carried newbies in the old server, even they weren't as shameless as this. They at least typed it out. "There's no space," Seven Fields said. "Good sister, can you give your spot to Brother?" Endless Night had even found the party's weak spot and shamelessly bothered Immersed Jade. Since Immersed Jade was a newbie and had never seen such a shameless guy, she was at a loss. Not knowing what to do, she looked as if she were going to compromise with that guy when Ye Xiu suddenly interrupted. "Are you a cleric?" Ye Xiu asked. "Yup, my skill is very good, expert." While Endless Night said this, he brought out that bright silvery cross. Seven Fields all didn't recognize that item, but they could see that it was definitely a good item. "Crystal cross, an orange weapon," Ye Xiu said. "Wow, you really are an expert. Good eye, why don't you bring me along?" Endless Night praised. "We don't need a cleric," Ye Xiu said. "Instant kill." This was an instant kill, a 5-word instant kill. The previously lively Endless Night went speechless. Seven Fields and the others truly did worship Brother Expert. "We don't need a cleric." Wow, how powerful. If he was switched with a normal player and the player stood outside Frost Forest and said, "We don't need a cleric," even Seven Fields would call him out for boasting. But Brother Expert was different. If Brother Expert said they didn't need a cleric, they obviously didn't need a cleric. "Cleric, go play somewhere else." "Go in, go in, go in," Seven Fields loudly said. No one paid any more attention to Endless Night. Endless Night just stood there like a statue and saw the party go into the dungeon. "Brother Expert, how do we kill?" Seven Fields entered and then directly asked Lord Grimm. "I'll pull and you guys just do your best to output damage," Ye Xiu said. Although one wave rush's hardest part was on the MT's ability to pull monsters, it also had high requirements for other players. With these guys, Ye Xiu didn't have confidence in their damage. With Brother Expert watching over, Seven Fields and the others felt that clearing this dungeon would be carefree and relaxed. Only the student Immersed Jade wasn't sensible and unexpectedly asked Brother Expert, "God, can we set a new record?" Wasn't this question disgracing yourself? There was no way they could set a new record. The problem wasn't Brother Expert, but rather on them. Seven Fields and the others all felt ashamed and helped Brother Expert answer this embarrassing answer. They advanced through the dungeon smoothly. They gave all of the items dropped by the boss to Ye Xiu. Only, if there was equipment their classes were proficient in, Ye Xiu still gave them. They breezed through the dungeon twice. The hidden boss never appeared and no amazing equipment dropped. Lord Grimm could still run the dungeon once more, but Seven Fields and the others had already reached the entry limit. They could only regretfully leave. In the end, when they left the dungeon, they saw Endless Night standing outside. The first time they went through, this guy had already left. Seeing these five, Endless Night immediately ran over. "No more runs left," the little punk happily said, which made Seven Fields have an exceptionally strong urge to beat him up. Endless Night had known that they could only run the dungeon twice more. "I can still run it once," Ye Xiu said honestly. "What a coincidence. I can run it once more too," Endless Night said. "Is that so?" Ye Xiu laughed. "There's still something that's an even bigger coincidence. See, I have 3 friends who can only run it once more too. Don't you think that's even more coincidental?" Endless Night said. 3 people had already come over from the crowd, their guild name Tyrannical Ambition displayed above their heads. "That really is a coincidence," Ye Xiu said. "Since it's such a coincidence, why don't we just all run it together?" Endless Night said. "Why don't we set a new record again?" Ye Xiu asked. Okay. Endless Night was extremely excited. "If we're going to set a new record, then I have 2 conditions," Ye Xiu said. "You can say them." "1, I charge a fee," Ye Xiu said. "Oh, that'll be easy," Endless Night said. "And the other, we don't need a cleric." Ye Xiu laughed. The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 44, Chapter 44, Different Fees, ha 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 ha. Seven Fields and the others laughed out loud. Now that was an act. Previously, Immersed Jade made them look a bit foolish to the bystanders when she yelled out God. But this time, their laughter had already made the bystanders think they were mentally ill. The many players that heard this loud laughter all turned around to look. In the end, they saw a player called Endless Night furiously type out around 20 exploding cartoon faces in the common chat box. What happened? The players all asked each other, but no one knew. As a result, everyone carefully shifted their characters over and tried to listen in. Then they heard Endless Night, who had just relentlessly raged in the chat box, grind his teeth and say, "Then what class do you need? 3 fire elementalists with magic attacks greater than 430, a level 22 or up doll Shururu auto-leveled, and a witch that can use Shadow Cloak. Their technique needs to be good and their hands need to be steady. They can't make any mistakes," Ye Xiu said. Endless Night stared blankly. Bringing 3 elementalists, this was a party with the highest DPS. Elementalists had low defense and low health. Witches only wore leather armor, which was just a bit better. The entire party all had extremely high attack but low defense. One Ot could spell utter destruction. It was sure enough, a zero-mistake party. Zero mistake meant that they couldn't afford to make a single mistake. As for this type of harsh requirement, Endless Night didn't have too many complaints because the current record was 20-24-11. If they wanted to break this sort of record, they naturally needed to use extremely harsh methods. If a member made a mistake, then saving him would waste a lot of time. This would only destine their party for failure. "I might not be able to gather such a party right now," Endless Night said. Actually, it wasn't just right now. They weren't able to gather such members in such a short period of time. It wasn't only Tyrannical Ambition. Other guilds didn't have 3 fire elementalists with 430 magic attack and above either. 430 magic attack signified that the weapon had to be a level 20 purple staff. How could a purple staff be so easy to find? Not to mention, it had to be a fire element one too. Currently, Tyrannical Ambition had 3 purple elementalist weapons, and unfortunately none of them were of the fire element. "No problem. When they've been gathered, contact me again," Ye Xiu said. "Besides that, are there any other options?" Endless Night said. "Level 25, Ye Xiu said. Level 25 was a completely different realm. New equipment, new skills, everyone's strength increased. Like this sort of level 2025 Frost Forest dungeon in the old servers, all of the records were made by a party of level 25s. "Fine, I'll add you first as friend then," Endless Night said. "Okay," Ye Xiu and Endless Night added each other as friends. After Endless Night, who had pretended to be decent, friended him, he revealed his true colors. Then, we don't need to set a record right now. All of us can do one more run. Why don't you come with us for a run? FCK, Seven Fields and the others gasped in surprise. This person truly was an immortal, invincible, shameless, ultra-unequaled cockroach. Okay. But Ye Xiu also replied, I can lower the fee a bit then. You need to charge a fee for this too. Don't tell me you charge them a fee too, Endless Night said. I didn't charge a fee, but all of the equipment was given to the party leader. I was the party leader. Ye Xiu said, that's fine, we can do the same. Endless Night said delightedly. Seven friends and the others listened to this and felt extremely uncomfortable. In their party, all of the equipment really did go to Brother Expert, but they knew Brother Expert was kind and honest. He never fought over items that suited them. When they were at the Spider Cave, he even gave the purple weapon to Sleeping Moon, a player who had been on bad terms with him. As you can see, I still haven't changed classes, so I want all of the equipment, Ye Xiu said. It's just a few equipment, that's all. Go, let's head out. Endless Night repeatedly sent party invites. They were all automatically declined by the system because he was still in a party. Finally, Ye Xiu left his party and had Lord Grimm join Endless Night's party. This was a standard 1 MT, 1 healer, 3 DSers party. Once Lord Grimm joined, Endless Night gave the party leader position to him. Then let's go. Ye Xiu directed Lord Grimm into the dungeon. Go. Endless Night led the 3 others and caught up. He was still very satisfied with this outcome. He wasn't worried about the record, he just wanted to see how good Lord Grimm really was. Ice and snow drifted in Frost Forest. Everywhere was silent. The 5 people stood there in a line. No one moved and no one talked. A static screen stayed there for about half a minute. Hey, Endless Night seemed as if he was testing his headphones. What are you haying for? Ye Xiu asked. Did someone say something? I haven't heard anyone say anything, Endless Night said. I don't think anyone said anything, right? Ye Xiu said. No one said anything, the other 3 agreed. Why aren't you talking? Endless Night said. Who are you asking? You. Why do I need to speak? Ye Xiu asked in response. To lead, Endless Night said. I'm leading. Yes, leading fee. 20 exploding faces were typed. The other 3 were all in chaos. Brother, you're not going that far, are you? Ha ha. Ye Xiu laughed. What's the leading fee? Endless Night discovered that he had met his match today. Sigh, no other way. Who told me to curry favor with this guy? Endless Night thought angrily. 10 white wolf bristles, Ye Xiu said. Brother, how evil, the 4 all said in unison. The white wolf's hair wasn't the bristle. The bristles had a chance to drop by Frost Forest's hidden boss White Wolf. It was considered an uncommon material. I don't have to lead, Ye Xiu said. Endless Night thought for a bit. In order to see an expert's inner qualities and skill, he had to see his leading for himself. As a result, he clenched his teeth and said, Fine, but I can only give it after we exit the dungeon. I didn't bring any with me. Can I trust his word? Ye Xiu asked the other 3. Big guilds wouldn't go back on their word. For example, after he made the deal with Blue River, Ye Xiu trusted Blue River. But this Endless Night was so outrageously shameless, so he had to express his doubts. You can trust him, the other 3 said immediately. Okay then, Ye Xiu replied. Hurry up and go, Endless Night said. Okay, MT pull the monsters, DSers go up, healer support the MT. Ye Xiu directed. The 4 stared blankly and their screens seemed to be frozen again for half a minute. That's it? Endless Night asked. Of course. What type of leading is this? Endless Night crumbled. You're all experts, you guys should know what to do, Ye Xiu said. Endless Night felt that he had been duped. If he used the standard routine, then their party didn't need any leading. Everyone could do it on their own and they'd be fine. No good. I have to make sure these 10 white bristles are worth their price. No, this won't work. Endless Night called. You have to lead us step by step. Okay, Ye Xiu said. Night, pull the 2 goblins at 10 o'clock. There are 3 possibilities. If the two are long-ranged, get close to them as fast as possible. If you're attacked while you're closing in, use Descending Phoenix Hammer. You'll be able to jump over their attacks and the shockwave will cause the two monsters to flip over. When you've gotten close, pull any one of their aggro steadily. If there is one melee and one long-ranged, use Falling Star Hammer to interrupt the long-ranged one's attack. When the melee one comes close, use Repel. Pull the long-ranged one's aggro first. If there are two melee ones, use Descending Phoenix Hammer and then repel one of them. Establish the remaining one's aggro. Do you understand? The knight's cheeks streamed with tears, giving me this sort of step-by-step leading. Do you think I'm stupid? The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 45, Chapter 45. Original Strategy 30. 8. 71. This was their clear time that Ye Xiu made with Endless Night and the others. This was a very normal time. All of the ordinary 5-man parties cleared Frost Forest in around 30 minutes. There was nothing to say about the time, but Endless Night was fuming with rage and grinding his teeth the entire time. They really did give away the leading fee for free. From the start to finish, Lord Grimm never stopped to direct them, but instead instructed them like how he did to the knight. He simply explained to them the ordinary strategy. If the 4 of them were newbies, then they would have benefited from this. But to Endless Night and the others, they ran that dungeon for nothing. In the entire course of the dungeon, they couldn't see anything especially remarkable about him. In the end, he led the 4 of them especially oppressively. They were also considered experts, but this strategy was entirely ordinary. It really made them look like idiots. Endless Night felt that Lord Grimm intentionally faked it, so he made mistakes on purpose to arouse the great expert's inner qualities. Instead, the great expert patiently explained what Endless Night's mistakes were. You should do this, and this. Hearing his 3 brothers sneakily laughing up their sleeves, Endless Night understood that he truly was being taken as an idiot. In the end, the only remarkable point was that Lord Grimm hadn't changed classes but still did as much damage as the 2 D-Sirs on the team. His weapon wasn't bad at least, but what was this battle lance? Endless Night had never seen it before. "Brother, you're trying to cheat us," Endless Night said after exiting the dungeon. "How can you say that? Did I lead wrong?" Ye Xiu said. Endless Night didn't know what to say. Although his leading was ordinary, there was nothing to pick at. He didn't miss any details. If it wasn't for Endless Night intentionally making mistakes, then nothing would have went wrong with his leading. This at least said that this guy had solid basics. Endless Night tried his hardest to accept this and tried his hardest to believe that the last dungeon run wasn't a waste of time. I benefited from this. I benefited. Are you going to get the white wolf bristles? Ye Xiu asked. Endless Night's cheeks streamed with tears again. This guy was the one who benefited. After receiving the white wolf bristles, Ye Xiu said goodbye and left. Endless Night's character didn't move. The player also sat in front of his computer baffled. Suddenly, someone nearby poked him twice. Endless Night turned his head and saw that it was one of the party members who had just dungeoned with him. On his screen wasn't the game, but instead a post on the Glory forums. Endless Night walked over and then heard that person say, "When I heard him lead, I thought it felt familiar, look here." Endless Night only glanced at it and almost coughed up blood. What if seeking basic skills? What if seeking nothing to pick at? That bastard's leading was straight up from a guide. Not a word different. Of course he wouldn't miss any details. "We've been duped," that brother said. 8 white wolf bristles. And in exchange, they got 100% clear rate guide with millions of views on the forums. Endless Night felt even more helpless. He had been asking to be duped. The other side didn't ask to dungeon with him, yet he even shamelessly forced it onto him. The other side didn't say he would lead, yet he shamelessly demanded that he led. In the beginning, the other side didn't read from the guide, yet he insisted that the other side instructed them step by step. Step by step. Even with their party of experts, they didn't need to be led step by step. Him putting forward this requirement made his balls hurt. Look, now it really did hurt. Beast! Endless Night grinded his teeth. He went back to his seat and furiously typed to Lord Grimm, "Brother, you're not kind. Did you trick us by using a guide?" "I wouldn't. I wrote that guide," Ye Xiu said. "Really?" Endless Night immediately turned his head and asked that brother, "Who wrote that guide?" That brother clearly hadn't noticed this. He immediately went back to the first post and said, "One autumn leaf." Endless Night was extremely angry. He turned back and continued pounding his keyboard. "What are you boasting for? That guide was written by the god Ye Xiu." "Right, that's me, shameless. 2F seeking shameless." Endless Night was completely speechless. "I have some stuff to do, so I need to go off. Let's get in touch later." Endless Night received this message from the other side. Escape, this was escape. It's 3 in the morning, what stuff do you have to do? Endless Night thought. In the happy internet cafe, Ye Xiu was currently bringing a few bottles of cola to the guests. It was quiet the entire night. At 7 in the morning, the guests began shutting down their computers one by one and left. Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm had leveled to 21. After leaving the beginner village, leveling wasn't as fast. First, the required experience increased by a substantial amount. Second, there was a dungeon entry limit. Although level 20s could limitlessly run the skeleton graveyard in the beginner village, they would find that the experience gained from skeleton graveyard had already been substantially reduced, as if they were more than 5 levels above the dungeon. After level 20, apart from dungeons, players had to rely on completing quests and killing wild monsters to level up. At the very front of the 10th server level leaderboards, Ye Xiu saw Blue River, Endless Night, these names, all level 24. Clearly, they all relied on playing in the new server all day and all night in order to attain this sort of achievement. There was a clear difference between these players who were nurtured by their guilds and normal players. Behind these top level 24s, the level 22 and level 23s were almost empty. But level 20, 21 were already the extremely hard-working players in the new server. For example, players like Lord Grimm and Seven Fields. In this short of a time, they were already considered quite crazy. Most of the players still hadn't left the beginner village. Morning, Brother Yi. At this time, the little brothers with the morning shift and the little sister cashier all came to work on time and said hello to Ye Xiu. Morning. Ye Xiu logged out of the game and shut down the counter's computer. "Everyone's busy. I'll be getting off work." "Okay." After saying hello to everyone, Ye Xiu stretched and returned to the second floor in her rooms. When he opened the door, he heard TV sounds from the living room. "Boss, you wake up this early." Ye Xiu said this and entered the room. In the end, he saw the TV on and Chen Guo sleeping on the sofa. She didn't have any blankets covering her and shrunk into a shrimp ball from the cold. "Boss, you should go back to your room and sleep." Ye Xiu went over and slapped her twice. Chen Guo flipped over and held a look of intense hate for disturbing her sleep. Ye Xiu was helpless and saw that Chen Guo's room wasn't closed. He went inside to look for something to help cover Chen Guo. He subconsciously judged Chen Guo's room with a few glances. He discovered that the room's floor, walls, and ceiling were all quite new. But on the other hand, the decorations and bed all looked quite old-fashioned. Ye Xiu didn't think too much of it. He took the blanket on Chen Guo's messy bed and covered Chen Guo's body. He turned off the TV and turned around to go sleep in the pitiful storage room. The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 46. Chapter 46. Easy Glory. Chen Guo didn't know how many times she had fell asleep on the sofa while watching TV. She'd usually wake up from the cold and then slowly crawl to bed. When she woke up today, she found that there was a blanket warmly wrapped around her. The blanket felt very familiar too. It had to be hers, so the half-awake Chen Guo thought she was sleeping on a bed. She comfortably wrapped the blanket around herself and flipped her body. With a bang, she fell off from the sofa. Chen Guo still held onto the blanket. It took a long while for her to recover from the daze. Only then did she realize that she fell from the sofa. The sofa wasn't tall. Falling down wouldn't do anything. It was funny, though. Chen Guo carried the blanket and climbed up. Seeing that the small storage room's door was closed, she knew that this was all done by the newcomer Ye Xiu. After putting back the blanket, she rinsed her mouth and washed her face in the bathroom. Someone rang the doorbell. Holding a toothbrush in her mouth, Chen Guo went to open the door. She saw a girl carrying all sorts of bags smiling at her. "Oh, little Tang, you've come back." Chen Guo bit the toothbrush and said with a mouthful of foam. "Yeah, how'd you just get up?" Tang Ru, who was carrying bags of all sizes, found it inconvenient to take the keys out, so she rang the doorbell. As a result, she found Chen Guo with this appearance. "I slept late yesterday." Chen Guo, with a mouthful of foam, still insisted on chatting. "Why don't you first finish brushing your teeth?" After Tang Ru entered the room, she put her stuff down wherever it was convenient, while Chen Guo continued forward to the bathroom. "I heard that you found a new employee." While Chen Guo brushed her teeth, Tang Ru reclined outside the door and asked with her head tilted, looking at the closed storage room. "Yup, did they tell you?" "Yeah. There's no vacant spot for him to live, so I've let him sleep there temporarily," Chen Guo said. "I heard he had only come for a day and had already made you terribly angry." Tang Ru clearly heard quite a bit of news downstairs. Chen Guo was speechless. It was terrible. Yesterday night she wanted to strangle that guy to death. On one side this person made her angry, but on the other side he put a blanket over her. Good things, bad things, he did them all. "What's wrong?" Tang Ru saw that Chen Guo's mind was wandering and that she hadn't said a word. "Nothing. He's really good at glory," Chen Guo said. "How good, like you?" Tang Ru laughed. "You're dead, girl." Chen Guo rolled her eyes. Mentioning this made her very depressed. Originally, Tang Ru didn't play glory. Chen Guo tried to teach the game to her so that they could play together. While peeking in the arena with her Chasing Haze account, she explained all of Glory's charm to her. Because Chen Guo was doing two things at once, she had been beaten quite miserably by her opponent. But Tang Ru immediately expressed a "let me try," which made Chen Guo feel extremely gratified. In the first round, Tang Ru was also beaten quite miserably. She then asked Chen Guo about a few particulars on how to perform a few actions. In the second round, she still lost. As a result, Chen Guo took the initiative and explained to her a few tactics that the opponent might use. Finally, in the third round, Tang Ru reversed the situation and beat her opponent miserably. "This is so easy." Tang Ru turned her head and spoke towards Chen Guo. Her previous extremely interested look had already disappeared. Chen Guo looked dumbstruck. A completely new player used only 2 rounds to get familiar with the controls. After understanding a tactic, she could already beat others. Chen Guo didn't know how good the opponent's skill was. She immediately borrowed an account with the same class as the opponent that Tang Ru fought against from one of the internet cafe guests. Although Chen Guo played launcher, she knew a little bit about the other classes. She was at least better than a person who had only touched glory for 3 rounds plus her skilled technique. In the end, she actually lost to Tang Ru. Chen Guo didn't want to believe it. Tang Ru, who didn't want to keep playing, was forced to fight another round with her. Although Chen Guo sometimes barely won a few times, she lost more than she won. Clearly, Tang Ru was getting more and more skilled. And now Chen Guo discovered why Tang Ru could inconceivably beat her. Hand speed. This girl was born with astonishing hand speed. At that time, Chen Guo had played glory for 3 years and thought that she was just a bit off from being an expert. Yet Chen Guo could only be endlessly ashamed. Talent. This was talent. If someone with talent didn't play glory, it would truly be a waste. Chen Guo began trying even harder to drag Tang Ru into playing glory, but in the end she failed. Chen Guo delightedly explained the charm of glory's mainland. Time and time again, all Chen Guo saw was Tang Ru incessantly yawning, as if she were about to fall asleep. Chen Guo tried hard for a full 2 months without any results. Finally, an event happened that made her thoroughly despair. Heavenly Domain Challenge Quests. To enter the Heavenly Domain, players had to complete a series of quests. Among those were a few normal monster-slaying quests, a few boss-killing quests, a few look-for-materials quests, and a few arena PK victory quests. But the quest that made players' heads hurt the most was still the skill challenge. The skill challenge didn't only require that the player beat the opponent. It also required that the player performed actions at a certain level set by the system. For example, a certain number of combos, total damage done by a back attack, the number of air juggling that had to be done, etc. Many players were stuck here and couldn't pass no matter what. Chen Guo was one of them. She was firmly stuck there in the skill challenge and couldn't reach the requirements no matter what. In the end, Tang Ru took her account card. After researching for a few days, she helped her finish the Heavenly Domain skill challenge. Chen Guo was thoroughly speechless. She finally understood why Tang Ru couldn't find any interest in the game no matter how hard she tried. This was because most players had to try hard to win. She could do things that needed hard work and practice with no difficulty at all. Glory was named Glory because they hoped that players would consider equipment skills and every record as glory. And players approved because these things truly were difficult to get and required hard work to obtain. But for Tang Ru, she cleared the skill challenge, which many players were firmly stuck on in just a few days. How could that produce any feeling of glory? No one would consider the task of holding a glass of water and drinking it as glory. Chen Guo despaired but didn't want to give up. In these 2 years, whenever she met a powerful opponent, she would drag Tang Ru to try. In the end, Tang Ru again and again turned her head and asked. It was that easy. If she kept doing this, then Chen Guo's face wouldn't be able to stay on anymore. The other side would just turn her head towards opponents that Chen Guo couldn't beat and say that was easy. This made it difficult for her to endure. As a result, in the recent few months, Chen Guo no longer did this often. But this time, after mentioning Ye Xiu, Chen Guo's sealed thoughts once again reignited. She suddenly wiped her mouth and threw her towel down. With her messy hair, she was about to smash at Ye Xiu's door. I'm going to call him for you to try out. AI, it's fine. Tang Ru immediately pulled at Chen Guo. Didn't he just get off the night shift and go to sleep? Let's wait until he gets up, okay? Oh, that's fine too. Chen Guo thought for a bit and temporarily dropped the matter. She grabbed her towel and was about to go wash when she suddenly thought of something. Right, his hands were like yours. Very Pretty the King's Avatar Volume 1 The Banished Battle God Chapter 47 Chapter 47 I'm playing unspecialized, help me fold the blanket. I brought you breakfast. When Ye Xiu got up and washed his face, he saw this sticky note. After tidying the room, he went to the living room table and looked. He was speechless and choked with sobs. It was 3 o'clock. Who on earth would drink soy milk and eat Ye Xiu at this time? They were cold too. TL note, Ye Xiu are like deep-fried strips of dough. The texture's like a donut, but they're usually salty rather than sweet. But saying it like this meant that the boss specially left it there and deserved to be given face. Ye Xiu took a Ye Xiu and put it in his mouth. After holding it in his mouth, he left the room. Glory's new server continued to bring popularity to the internet cafe. However, the Happy Cafe was big enough, and there was rarely a time when all of the seats were filled. Ye Xiu turned around and looked for an open spot in the smoking area, but when he felt his pockets, he discovered that his cigarette box was empty. This was much more painful than eating cold Ye Xiu. The even more painful part was that he had no money either. How was he going to pass the day? Ye Xiu felt that he should ask the boss for his pay in advance. Although food and shelter were covered, he ate very little. Every day he only had 2 meals. Besides this, he didn't know if he saved enough money to smoke. However, thinking of Chen Guo's hate for smoking, Ye Xiu felt he'd have a hard time making this a reality. While he let his imagination run wild, someone patted his back. He immediately turned his head. Chen Guo was the one who patted Ye Xiu. With a turn of his head, the Ye Xiu in his mouth almost slapped Chen Guo's face. Chen Guo, with her temper, immediately began scolding. "You hold cigarettes in your mouth. You hold Ye Xiu in your mouth. What can't you hold in your mouth? Can you not use your hands?" Thinking of hands, Chen Guo once again recalled how pretty Ye Xiu's hands were. For those hands to be blackened by smoke or oiled by the Ye Xiu, that'd be a pity. Could it be that holding cigarettes and Ye Xiu in the mouth is proper? FCK, this is making my head hurt. Chen Guo shook her head and glared at Ye Xiu. "Come with me." Ye Xiu followed Chen Guo to the reception desk. Tang Ru was currently sitting there. When she saw Chen Guo bringing Ye Xiu, she stood up and smiled. "Tang Ru, Ye Xiu." Chen Guo introduced the two. "Hi." Tang Ru extended out her hands. Chen Guo looked at these hands and felt envious of them. Ye Xiu's hands truly were pretty, but they were after all male hands. If those were a girl's hands, they'd be a bit too big. Tang Ru's hands were true girl hands. Any adjective used, fine jade, slender, soft, nimble, etc., anything that could describe Tang Ru's hands wouldn't be excessive. "Hi, hi." When Ye Xiu said this, the Ye Xiu was stuffed into his mouth and he was chewing violently, so the pronunciation wasn't clear. Seeing Tang Ru extended her hands out, he immediately did the same. The two shook hands. Tang Ru also paid attention to Ye Xiu's hands and did it while keeping proper manners. While they shook hands, she quickly glanced at it. Afterwards, her gaze continued to look politely towards Ye Xiu's eyes. After a casual shake, they pulled back their hands. Ye Xiu didn't look any different on the outside, but he was pretty astonished on the inside. This was because he didn't think that this girl, Tang Ru, would be like this. Her appearance and figure were all outstanding, but the part that made her feel out of the ordinary was the aura that she exuded. Form, appearance, clothes, there was no part of her that made people feel uncomfortable. No matter what angle she was looked at, she was an immortal beauty from the legends. The only different part was her short hair. At first, it looked a bit weird, but after seeing it a couple times, this type of short hair only made her look more fresh and pretty. But Ye Xiu's astonishment wasn't about this. He was astonished because why would such an outstanding girl be willing to work part-time at an internet cafe for 2 years? No matter how big Happy Internet Cafe was, the only one who would become rich was Chen Guo. As for regular employees, the salary here wasn't bad, but it wasn't any type of work with future prospects. Network manager, cashier. What youth would pursue this type of job all their life? These were only temporary jobs so that they could eat their fill. Normal people wouldn't want to work in these types of jobs for 2 years, to saying nothing of an outstanding girl like Tang Ru. Come, you guys fight around." Chen Guo wouldn't let Ye Xiu continue to ponder. After introducing the two, she went straight for the main subject. She looked as if she had waited all day and had to restrain herself from dragging Ye Xiu out of bed. "Fight?" Ye Xiu asked. "Glory, where else can you fight?" Chen Guo said. "Oh, you can play glory." Ye Xiu asked Tang Ru. "No, I don't know how." Tang Ru smiled. Chen Guo heard this and was extremely unhappy. "If you can't play, then what am I?" "You really can play, I'm just so-so, that's all," Tang Ru said. "How good is so-so?" Ye Xiu didn't understand. "Don't listen to her modesty, she really can play." Chen Guo had already dragged the two to their stations. "Little Tang, use my chasing haze," Chen Guo said and asked Ye Xiu. "And you reached level 20 yesterday night, right? What class did you change to?" "I still haven't changed," Ye Xiu said. "What, you're not going to change?" "I'm playing unspecialized," Ye Xiu said. Unspecialized? Chen Guo was astonished. Even in her 5 years, the era of unspecialized characters was already long gone. She had only heard a few veterans bring it up and using their words. It was just a legend. How do you play as an unspecialized character? How are you going to level after 50? Chen Guo said. You couldn't before, but now you can, Ye Xiu said. How are you going to level? Chen Guo asked. Heavenly domain, Ye Xiu said. Are you joking? Chen Guo said wide-eyed. You want to complete the heavenly domain challenges at level 50. I'm awesome, right? Awesome my ass, Chen Guo said. A level 50 challenging the heavenly domain. Chen Guo tried to analyze how hard that would be. But after a while she hadn't gotten anywhere because it really was too difficult. She didn't even know where to start. If you want to see it, then please don't fire me, Ye Xiu laughed. You're mad, Chen Guo concluded. Ye Xiu laughed and logged into his account. I'm only level 21, I'll play against your level 70 in the fixed field. You want to use that lousy account? Chen Guo's eyes widened. Then what do I use? Ye Xiu didn't understand. I'll borrow whatever class you want. This was also why Chen Guo asked what class Ye Xiu changed to. Chen Guo had many frequent customers, so she was certain she could borrow an account to temporarily use. Unspecialized. Get lost. Tang Ru looked at these two, quite interested. She discovered that he was just like how everyone described. This person was really good at making Chen Guo angry. We can just casually fight one round. There's no need to be so serious, Tang Ru said. Exactly. Ye Xiu agreed. How are a level 21 and a level 70 going to fight? Chen Guo said. Fixed field, Ye Xiu said. Chen Guo was speechless. Fixed field was for practice. Victory or defeat wouldn't be recorded. In fixed field, the system would fix all attributes and equipment. After being fixed, it didn't matter if it was a level 21 and a level 70 character, their attributes would be the same. But even if the attributes were fixed, the difference in the amount of skills they had couldn't be amended. A level 21 character definitely wouldn't have skills that could be learned after level 20. This couldn't be fixed. Even if a level 21 and a level 70 fought in the fixed field, the level 21 would still be at a disadvantage. You forgot, I'm unspecialized. Level 20 and level 70 doesn't matter, Ye Xiu said. Chen Guo finally understood. Right. If it was an unspecialized character, level didn't matter, because unspecialized characters couldn't learn level 20, and above skills the King's Avatar Volume 1 The Banished Battle God Chapter 48 countless variations. Okay, today I'll open my eyes and see this so-called unspecialized character, Chen Guo said. From when she started playing Glory, unspecialized characters had already become extinct. Make a room, okay. Pick that map right, the smallest one. Chen Guo stood behind Tang Ru pointing. Glory's arena was a joint server. After joining the arena, a player could duel others from different servers. The character would have the server number next to the name. This way, even those with the same name could be differentiated by servers. Invite him, Lord Grimm, write those 2 words, Chen Guo said. Tang Ru sent the invite and the system prompted. The player you have invited is not in the arena. What are you doing? Hurry up, Chen Guo yelled. Wait a bit, let me use my skill points. Lord Grimm had leveled up last night. Leveling, clearing dungeons, quests, he had accumulated quite a few skill points and hadn't had the time to use them yet. So slow, Chen Guo mumbled to herself. Although she was worried, Tang Ru, on the other hand, was calm and unhurried. Looking at Chasing Haze's equipment. Have you recently gotten any good equipment? Although she didn't play, her knowledge of Chasing Haze wasn't lower than Chen Guo's. After all, Chen Guo loved to talk about it. No, how could it be so easy? While Chen Guo replied, she impatiently looked towards Ye Xiu, but saw that guy sneakily waving his hands at her, hinting her to come over. What are you doing? Chen Guo muttered to herself as she walked over. To specially want me and her to battle around, you don't have any particular reason, do you? Ye Xiu asked in a low voice. What do you think? I don't know, that's why I'm asking you. You don't need me to let her win, right? Ye Xiu said. Say it after you've beaten her, Chen Guo said. Okay. Ye Xiu nodded his head and let Lord Grimm enter the arena. Ready, Tang Ru invited and Ye Xiu accepted. Chen Guo ran back to behind Tang Ru. Ye Xiu, however, wasn't in a rush. He stretched out his neck and asked, "Just fight like this. Do you want to do a little betting?" "What betting?" Chen Guo didn't understand. "For example, a cigarette pack," Ye Xiu suggested. Chen Guo almost died from anger. Right when she was about to roar, Tang Ru said happily, "Okay, I can't smoke and I don't have any cigarettes either. Let's bet 100 yuan, what do you think?" "Okay, okay," Ye Xiu gladly agreed. "Then I'll testify, here's 100 yuan. Tang Ru took out 100 yuan and gave it to Chen Guo. "Do you both agree?" Chen Guo was flabbergasted. "It's just for fun," Tang Ru laughed. "Okay." Chen Guo delightedly took Tang Ru's 100 yuan. "And you?" "IOH, that's nothing, I have here a rare cigarette box." "You've gone mad from poverty, haven't you?" Chen Guo really was happy and laughed. She took out 100 yuan and waved it in front of him. "I'll let you borrow this, I'll deduct it from your salary." "Okay, okay, I'll return it right away," Ye Xiu said. "How confident, we're starting," Tang Ru said. "Start, start." The scene changed and the two entered the arena. The map was the smallest stage. The opponents stood on opposite sides. Chen Guo served as the coach outside of the stage. He still hasn't changed classes. This is called an unspecialized character. He'll have many skill variations. By looking at his weapon, you can figure out which class's skill he's going to use. "Oh," Tang Ru replied. Although she hadn't officially played Glory for over a year, she had played many rounds of PK for Chen Guo. She knew of all of the different classes. "Then what is the weapon in his hand called?" Tang Ru pointed to the screen. This. Chen Guo looked for a long time but couldn't recognize it. She directly asked, "What's the weapon in your hand?" "Shameless, Ye Xiu, you have to ask. It looks like an umbrella." Tang Ru let Chasing Haze walk forward a few steps and zoomed in. "Umbrella, there's no such weapon. It's gotta be a broom, right?" Chen Guo also leaned forward to look. "I'm coming." While Ye Xiu said this, he let Lord Grimm run forward in a straight line towards Chasing Haze. Tang Ru really did react fast. When Lord Grimm moved, she had already moved her mouse in an instant and shot accurately. But in a blur, Lord Grimm flickered and avoided the shot. Chen Guo, who was watching on the side, knew that this move was called Z-Shake. The principle was simple, but was extremely difficult to pull off in an actual battle. After dodging the shot, Lord Grimm closed the distance. He lowered his body and slide kicked towards Chasing Haze. How crafty! Chen Guo was deeply moved. Although slide kick was a gunner skill, it was a body skill, so the weapon didn't matter. This attack still didn't reveal what thing he was holding onto. Sure enough, Tang Ru's hand speed didn't disappoint Chen Guo's expectations. Before the slide kick hit, Chasing Haze had already rolled out of the way. She quickly got up and prepared to use a body skill to hit back. Her dodge, move, and attacks were all performed extremely quickly. Who knew that the screen would suddenly flash with a shining white light? Lord Grimm's right hand took out a sharp sword from that unknown weapon in his left hand. This shining light wasn't merely as simple as pulling out a weapon. This was the blade master skill, sword draw. This attack surprised Chen Guo. Even if she wanted to switch actions, she was afraid that her reaction speed was too slow. Unlike her, Tang Ru's left hand had already tapped the keyboard twice. Her right hand pushed the mouse. Chasing Haze leaped backwards and prepared to fire another shot. This move dodged the sword draw attack and returned fire. After the shot launched, using the recoil, she flew backwards to increase their distance. This was practically killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Right when Chen Guo wanted to yell out good, she didn't think that after Lord Grimm used sword draw, his sword had already returned to the sheath. He seized the opportunity to change sword, belt, sheath, and chased after the midair Chasing Haze. At this moment, he had already closed in. This change was even quicker. Chen Guo couldn't figure out which blade master attack used a sheath to smash, but she felt that there was still a bit of distance between Chasing Haze and Lord Grimm. Then the umbrella-like thing in Lord Grim's hands opened up. In an instant, the umbrella flipped and the umbrella bones turned upside down. They concentrated on the tip as if it were a lance and then stabbed towards chasing Hayes. Immediately following, Lord Grim flipped the handle. This lance drew a semicircle, bringing chasing Hayes along with it, and flipped her upside down, her head down and feet up. Chen Guo was shocked because this wasn't any ordinary attack. This was a skill called Circle Swing, a battle mage skill. This wasn't a rare skill among unspecialized characters, but the problem was that Lord Grim had used that thing to execute sword draw, so it should be a swordsman-class weapon. How could it suddenly turn into a battle mage lance in the blink of an eye? Tang Ru was more stunned by his technique. After fighting for a bit, she was actually slower by a level. This was something she hadn't expected. Due to Glory being a first-person perspective game, this type of skill like Circle Swing was relatively strong. Having the sky and earth flipping upside down in an instant destroyed people's sense of direction, making the victim feel vexed. Chen Guo could be considered an experienced veteran, so she wouldn't go so far as to become confused. But Tang Ru only played occasionally. Although she had extremely high hand speed to carry her, this type of sudden viewpoint change was too much for her. She hastily figured out the direction and twisted her body. But unexpectedly, chasing Hayes was unable to turn over her body. Her character raised her head to look. One of Lord Grim's feet had stepped on her, while the other was on the ground. That thing in his hand had returned back to its original shape. This time, it looked like a close-ranged pose. Chen Guo and Tang Ru finally saw that it really was an umbrella, and that the umbrella's tip was aimed at chasing Hayes's head. The two still hadn't recovered from the shock when the umbrella tip unleashed a tongue of flame. Peng, peng, peng. A string of gun sounds hit the down chasing Hayes. Gunner class sharpshooter skill, Punisher. TL note, http://mgur.com/MB6 in 81, a one-step instruction manual by Namyumi on how to get rid of the flying text in the video below. TLC note. I found a fan art model video about these forms. Unofficial, based on literary description and fantasy, not exactly same with the original work. For instance, should be shield form and there should be no, the author had modified, into, which is the official name of umbrella form. The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 49. Chapter 49. You really don't know how to play DMN. What is that thing? Chen Guo was dumbstruck. The weapon in Lord Grim's hands was a trinity. Sword, lance, gun. A transforming weapon. Compared to Chen Guo, Tang Ru, who didn't know much about Glory, wasn't too scared by it. Her fingers quickly jumped and chasing Hayes did a roundhouse kick. After Lord Grim leaped to avoid it, chasing Hayes raised her hands and used an anti-tank missile. Tang Ru acted quickly. The skill itself also launched quickly. The distance was close and Lord Grim took the explosion head-on and turned into a cloud of smoke. Tang Ru and Chen Guo were both startled. In the fixed field, players couldn't be killed like this in an instant. Even if they were, the dead player would leave a corpse. How could he just turn into a cloud of smoke? Not good. By the time Tang Ru realized it, it was already too late. With a pang, blood blossomed out from chasing Hayes's neck. Assassin skill, cut throat. This skill had to be used from behind the target. Adding onto the armor-ignoring back attack, even though it was a low-leveled skill, it still did considerable damage. As for that Lord Grim, who had been turned into smoke by the anti-tank missile, the two both understood too late that it was the ninja skill Shadow Clone technique. After dodging her roundhouse kick, he used the skill. He left the clone in front of her, while his real body split to behind her body, completing the cut throat. Tang Ru, who had suffered from attacks multiple times, now had a look of extreme concentration on her. After a series of tapping sounds, chasing Hayes flew through the blood blossom like an arrow. She completed a 180-degree turn in midair not even half a meter above the ground, showing her exceptionally quick technique. Her mouse quickly moved looking for a target to fire at, but when her character turned, she only saw a sword light chopping down towards her, bringing along a bloody mist. Swordsman class Berserker skill, Collapsing Mountain. Although the skills learned by unspecialized characters didn't have the damage bonuses given if they were done by the skill's original class, the original effects wouldn't change. Collapsing Mountain chopped down towards Chasing Haze. After hitting the ground, there was a short knock-up effect. Lord Grim quickly seized the opportunity and kneed her, smashing Chasing Haze higher into the air. With a shake of the 1,000-chance umbrella, the mid-air Chasing Haze was gunned down repeatedly. Chen Guo and Tang Ru were beyond familiar with this skill. This was a launcher skill, barbecue. After Chasing Haze, who had just been barbecued by gunfire, fell to the ground, she immediately turned over to fight again. But when her character turned around a circle, she couldn't find Lord Grim's figure. Instead, she saw a green goblin swaying around throwing rocks at her. Tang Ru and Chen Guo both collapsed. This was a mage-class summoner's summoned pet. Raising her hands, she bombarded the goblin when Lord Grim suddenly dropped from the sky, stepping on top of Chasing Haze's head. Fighter-class striker skill, Eagle Stamp. Tang Ru no longer had that previous, just-for-fun attitude. After being stepped on, Chasing Haze pointed her gun up towards the sky, ready to gun him down. But to her surprise, Lord Grim's umbrella tip once again aimed at her. A flame tongue shot out and more blood blossomed out from Chasing Haze's head. Lord Grim used the recoil of this gun and easily flew backwards with aerial fire. Close combat was disadvantageous towards launchers. Tang Ru had wanted to use aerial fire the entire time to pull apart the distance, but this time, the opponent unexpectedly took the initiative to distance himself. After being hit multiple times, Chasing Haze didn't have much life left. Yet Lord Grim didn't even seem like he had been touched. Tang Ru hadn't given up hope and prepared to continue attacking him when Ye Xiu said, "How about we stop fighting?" "Why?" Tang Ru asked. "It turns out you really don't know how to play," Ye Xiu said. Tang Ru didn't know what to say. Aside from Chen Guo enthusiastically explaining to her a few things, she really didn't know much else. But even like this, just relying on her high hand speed, she helped Chen Guo defeat opponents Chen Guo couldn't win against. She had even completed the Heavenly Domain skill challenge that was difficult for the majority of the players. Tang Ru could say that she didn't know glory, but she was still extremely strong. This was why Chen Guo wanted to bring her into the game by every means possible. But it was also why she wasn't interested in the game. A lot of people did things because they found it easy. Tang Ru was different. She couldn't concentrate on things that she found easy. The tormented Chen Guo also saw this. This was an extremely competitive girl. Once she found something difficult without anyone's encouragement, she wouldn't stop until she overcame it. For example, when she attacked at Chasing Haze's Heavenly Domain skill challenge, Tang Ru also failed many times before succeeding. In that short amount of time, the amount of drive she had looked 100 times greater than Chen Guo's love for glory. Chen Guo thought that this time Tang Ru was moved, but who knew that after the skill challenge, Tang Ru quickly lost interest in glory. Clearing for equipment and so on, Tang Ru didn't take this type of item hoarding seriously. In the end, Tang Ru saw glory as being, so it was that easy. In order to arouse her interest, her impression of the game had to change. This was why Chen Guo kept on looking for opponents that Tang Ru couldn't beat to make her realize the difficulty of the game. But this actually made it worse. Every time Tang Ru met a so-called expert in the arena, she would quickly beat him. That sort of celebrity names, those professional gamers, Chen Guo didn't know how many times she explained them to Tang Ru. But Tang Ru only laughed, not believing her. No choice. Facts spoke louder than words. But where would Chen Guo find such an expert? Up until Tang Ru returned, Chen Guo kept on thinking of letting Ye Xiu try her out. Chen Guo didn't know exactly how strong Ye Xiu was. However, he had once been in the professional circle, so he had to be stronger than normal players. At worst, Tang Ru would just say, so it was that easy again. This was Chen Guo's original intention. But every time she came into contact with Ye Xiu, he would always make her mad. Angrily, Chen Guo forgot her original notion and stood behind Tang Ru, hoping for Tang Ru to tyrannically destroy Ye Xiu to vent her anger. But in the end, Tang Ru was beaten without a chance to retaliate. Only after Ye Xiu said, "Don't know how to play," did she finally remember. Don't know how to play. Chen Guo felt this remark was a little too excessive. If that was considered as not knowing how to play, then what about all of those opponents Tang Ru had beaten? Furthermore, wasn't this guy too strong? He had completely suppressed Tang Ru from start to finish. A player from the professional circle really was on a different level. Ordinarily, when she watched recordings of competitions, it didn't feel like they were that op. It seemed like it was still the problem of opponents. Pro gamer versus pro gamer were all evenly matched opponents, so it didn't look any different from when normal players fought. Ye Xiu, who sat nearby, had already stood up. He nodded his head and said, "Your technique is quite quick, but the coordination between your left and right hands is a complete mess. When your viewpoint suddenly changes, your adaptability and judgment pretty much turns to zero. Your understanding towards equipment and skills isn't nearly enough. Your real combat experience is too little and your tactics are too stiff. How could this be considered playing? If you want to beat me with this skill, then come back in 100 years. The King's Avatar Volume 1 The Banished Battle God. Thank you for listening to the story on KevinAudio.com Chapter 50 again. Hey, you're going too far. Chen Guo was a bit angry. Although she really had looked for someone to irritate Tang Ru, she didn't actually think Ye Xiu wouldn't say a single good point about her. Did he really need to go so far? Oh, I'm sorry. Ye Xiu said, I was a little excessive. The 100 years part is only an exaggeration. You don't actually need that long. Hearing the first half, Chen Guo was astonished that this guy actually admitted his error. But after hearing the last half, she became so furious that her nose almost went crooked. You just can't say anything good. While Chen Guo said this, she glanced at Tang Ru. She had pushed it too far. She had always wanted to irritate this little sister once, but now that she had done it, she was afraid that she had gone too far. Her technique was quite quick. I said that, Ye Xiu said. What else? Chen Guo said. What else? Ye Xiu thought hard. His sight shifted to a different place. She's very pretty. Chen Guo coughed blood. He's praising her, right? He's praising her, right? But the problem was that they were discussing the game. He said she's very pretty, but didn't that still mean that there wasn't a single good point about her playing? Tang Ru's going to be angry. She's going to be angry. Chen Guo lowered her head and looked. Tang Ru was biting her lips. Her right hand was still tightly gripping the mouse. If she were Chen Guo, then she would have already grabbed the keyboard and started smashing him with it. But after all, Tang Ru wasn't her. She only coldly said, "Say it after we've finished fighting." There's no need. I was going leniently before. If not, then after the eagle stamp, I would have used falling light blade, sky strike, swept the floor, dragon tooth, falling flower palm, and then you'd be dead. Ye Xiu said. Then why didn't you continue? Tang Ru asked. If I did that, then I'd have won and taken your 100 yuan. But you really don't know how to play, so that would be too unfair. I'd be too embarrassed to take your 100 yuan. Forget about it. Ye Xiu said and then faced Chen Guo. Boss, that 100 yuan is mine. You can deduct that from my salary. You already agreed. You. Chen Guo was so angry she almost died. Taking that 100 yuan, she crumpled it into a ball and threw it. Take it. Thanks. Ye Xiu immediately caught it. He wasn't actually penniless, but cigarettes were like food and had to be consumed. From a long-term standpoint, he had to be prepared. If I lost, I lost. You don't need to pass on it. You take this 100 yuan. Tang Ru stood up. She took that 100 yuan she bet and handed it over. Forget about it. I'd really be too embarrassed to take it, Ye Xiu said. Take it. Chen Guo glared at Ye Xiu. She knew of Tang Ru's temper. This girl was eager and serious. If Ye Xiu insisted on not accepting the money, then things wouldn't end well. She was now afraid that Ye Xiu was also a guy who would bash his head against a brick wall. If he didn't take the money no matter what, then what should she do? But in the end she heard Ye Xiu say, "Then give it to boss, I owe her money." Starred, kicking the ball to me. Chen Guo was furious, but Tang Ru had different intentions. Tang Ru didn't want to anger Chen Guo, so she took the money to her. Then his debt is clear now. Let's fight another round. Tang Ru threw this at him and sat down. Chen Guo could only feel as if her cheeks streamed with tears. This was Tang Ru. She wasn't like Chen Guo and wouldn't start yelling and strangling the other person. She was a firm believer that facts spoke louder than words and would only use her strength to make you speechless. Due to the practiced nature of the fixed field, there was no victory or defeat counter. The player was also free to enter or exit whenever they wanted to. After Tang Ru sat down, she directly selected the again option. Without waiting for Ye Xiu to speak, she pulled out another 100 yuan and put it on the table. It's still 1 round 100. Although I don't really know how to play, I hope you'll treat this seriously. Ye Xiu turned around towards Chen Guo. Chen Guo spread out her hands, meaning that she didn't care. You fix your own problems. Okay. Ye Xiu also didn't say too much and silently sat down. The new round started. Chen Guo still stood behind Tang Ru, but this time she only quietly watched without saying anything. She also wouldn't fuss too much about nothing. The situation was the same as the previous round. Chasing Haze still lost without even touching Lord Grimm's clothing. The only difference this time was Lord Grimm didn't show any more mercy. He directly depleted Chasing Haze's life. Again, Tang Ru without saying anything further. She pulled out another 100 yuan and slapped it down. She chose the again option, still lost. Again, another loss. Again, another loss. Ye Xiu didn't say another word. Chen Guo looked again at Ye Xiu's expression. She only saw that Lord Grimm truly didn't show the slightest amount of mercy. Concentrated and cautious, he didn't let a single opportunity go. Vicious and merciless. Many internet cafe guests gradually noticed this competition. A few frequent customers had already left their stations and gathered to watch the scene. Most of the frequent customers recognized Tang Ru. To many, this beauty was their dream girlfriend. As a result, many knew that Tang Ru didn't play glory, but her PK skill wasn't low. Now that they saw her repeatedly slapping down one bill after another, all of them were dumbstruck. As for her opponent, he had only arrived 2 days ago and did a night shift, so frequent customers didn't immediately recognize him. Only after seeing the battle, people behind Tang Ru exclaimed in awe, "Lord Grimm, that's the 10th server's Lord Grimm." Really? Where? This short remark startled many people. Quite a few customers who heard this came over to join the crowd. Tang Ru and Ye Xiu weren't disturbed by this. They continued to meticulously battle. When Chen Guo saw these people's reactions towards Lord Grimm, she was astonished. She seized a person watching. Who's Lord Grimm? The 10th server's most popular character. 3 first clears in Beginner Village. Frost Forest's current clear record holder and has already joined Blue Brook Guild. No, I know people from Blue Brook Guild. After Lord Grimm helped them set a new record, he left the guild. DMN, he doesn't even see Blue Brook Guild in his eyes. What does he want to do? Hey, quiet down, he's right there. What, which one? This crowd that didn't know the facts clearly hadn't realized that the person Tang Ru was betting money with was sitting directly across from her. Wow, lost again. What round is this? I don't know. When I came, it had already started. There's 500 on the table, right? Yeah. Wow, another bill. Sis Tang, go. Just like this, Tang Ru lost 10 rounds in a row. In those 10 rounds, it couldn't be said that Lord Grimm's clothing hadn't been touched once, but in the spectators' eyes, they didn't see a single chance of her winning. The previous cheering sounds had already turned to comforting. There were also a few people who started despising Lord Grimm for not having tender, more protective feelings towards girls. Again, Tang Ru remained unmoved. She yelled it again. But after she pulled out her purse, she could only stare blankly. She couldn't fight another round. Because she had no money, the King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 51, Chapter 51. The weapon that couldn't be hidden. When Ye Xiu heard Tang Ru yell again, he didn't waver in the slightest. He only steadily gripped his mouse and was ready to kill and behead the girl again. However, after he heard the yell this time, he didn't enter the stage. Ye Xiu stood up and saw Tang Ru's shriveled-up empty purse. Finally, no money, Ye Xiu laughed. This guy was waiting until I emptied my purse before stopping. Tang Ru slowly stood up. Wait for me to get more. Sis Tang, forget about it. The surrounding people that knew her all tried to persuade her. Little Tang, Chen Guo also went over to block her. With this girl's competitiveness, Chen Guo didn't doubt that she would try until she went bankrupt. The most loathsome part was that Ye Xiu, after winning, he didn't even try to give her a way out of this embarrassing situation. In the end, she heard Ye Xiu say, "Forget about it. This type of recklessness isn't fun," still mocking her. Chen Guo was furious. She turned around and right when she was about to say something, she heard Ye Xiu follow. "You should learn it properly first. You should at least figure out how large the gap between me and you is. You can't win in glory with just hand speed. If you want to fight with me, there will be plenty of chances later." Chen Guo was startled. This was actually sensible and reasonable. This guy finally said some real people talk. But at this moment, how could the ignited Tang Ru pay attention to this? Tang Ru's footsteps had already stopped, and she stood there lost in thought. The surrounding crowd went silent. All of them seemed like they were waiting for some great conclusion. Chen Guo suddenly saw something move from the corner of her eye. She turned her head to look. It was Ye Xiu giving her a meaningful look and gesturing at her. This shameful guy actually wanted her to hand him the money. Chen Guo was angry, but she knew that with Tang Ru's temperament she definitely wouldn't let him return the money. Now at this moment she ignored Ye Xiu and waved her hands at the spectating crowd. "What are you looking at? It's already over. Go, go." The spectating crowd saw that Tang Ru didn't move, so they didn't either. Instead, they surrounded Ye Xiu and asked, "Brother, what weapon is that?" Only players that didn't play glory wouldn't care. When this question was asked, even Chen Guo pricked her ears up. On one hand, she wanted to hear the answer, but on the other hand, she wanted to comfort Tang Ru. She was just too dead busy. "Haha, it's nothing. It's just a thing I made myself," Ye Xiu said. "Self-made weapon," someone reacted quickly. He immediately understood what the 4 words "I made it myself" meant and blurted it out in surprise. The crowd immediately went into an uproar. Self-made equipment. That was high-end content that normal players couldn't even dream of touching. Glory had operated for 10 years. The methods to self-making equipment that were published online were at best orange-level equipment. The truly legendary silver equipment that surpassed orange equipment could only be seen in the professional leagues. Why would these professional clubs give away methods to making these sort of silver equipment to the public? "Brother, can we take a look at it?" Someone asked Ye Xiu. "Sure." Ye Xiu laughed and let everyone look at the 1,000-chance umbrella. While Chen Guo put her hands on Tang Ru's shoulder, she said, "Go, go, go. Let's go up and rest a bit." At the same time, she couldn't help but stretch out her neck to see what exactly Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm held in his hands. Seeing this appearance, Tang Ru also couldn't help but laugh. "If you want to go look, then go look." Chen Guo heard this and turned her head to look. Tang Ru wasn't depressed like she expected, so she immediately felt relieved. But she still brought Tang Ru upstairs and said with authority, "Humph, I'll go look later. If he dares to not let me look, then I'll fire him." The surrounding crowd that looked at the 1,000-chance umbrella's attributes were all in awe. In addition, most of these players were playing in the new server, so they were very familiar with low-leveled weapons. With just a look, they could tell that this was a genuine silver weapon. The legendary orange weapon surpassing silver weapon. Amazing, how did you make it? Someone blurted it out. Ye Xiu smiled but didn't speak, so no one continued to question him. Even the previous person who blurted it out felt a little bad. Which self-made equipment wasn't made with blood, sweat, and tears? Who would ask for him to just casually give out his blood? What a pity. It's only level 5 TL note. Only the lance form is level 15. The other forms are still level 5. The server just started, that's all. If you start collecting materials now, can't you get it to level 70? Really? I heard that self-made equipment only looked at materials and not the materials levels. FCK, you understand, huh? If you understand, go make one. I heard, that's just what I heard, the players commented one after another. Ye Xiu only smiled at what he heard but didn't join the discussion. Normal players only had a smattering of knowledge on this sort of high-end content and couldn't really get anywhere with it. But a legendary self-made silver weapon really did appear. This was already something everyone could talk about. However, all of the players didn't forget to add, it's a pity it's only level 5. Level 5 equipment. No matter how OP it was, it still wouldn't have any value. Everyone understood the reasoning. Although most players knew that self-made equipment could be upgraded in the editor, upgrading was just as difficult as making. A small mistake could ruin the weapon. Level 5. The starting point was so low. The amount of upgrades it needed was too big. Everyone all subconsciously thought that instead of upgrading it, it'd be better to just directly make a high-leveled one. Brother, are you going to make any other professional-level silver weapons? Someone knew how to ask the important questions. Compared to this silver weapon, the talent that could make such a silver weapon was of much more value. No more. This was something I just randomly threw together, Ye Xiu said. Brother, if you're ever going to make anything, I'll give you the materials, just name a price. There was still someone who wouldn't give up on self-made equipment. Ordinarily, they all felt that it was something too out of reach. But today, someone who had one appeared. I really can't. If I could, would I be sitting here? Ye Xiu said. The person who had been unwilling to give it up went silent. That was true. Someone who could make self-made equipment was definitely a more valuable talent than normal experts. They could close their door and get rich. They could also join a professional club's tech team. Brother, do you want a dungeon? Let's go together. At this moment, there were even people who invited Ye Xiu to play. They were clearly also from the 10th server. I've already reached the entry limit. Ye Xiu laughed. Let's play together when there's a chance. Okay. After paying their respects and saying kind words to try and make friends with him, the crowd gradually dispersed. Ye Xiu let out a sigh. Truthfully, self-made weapons were too precious. They were supposed to be hidden from the outside. In Glory, players couldn't use the system to check on other people's equipment, so it was relatively good for hiding them. But the problem was that the 1000-chance umbrella was too unusual. What game had this sort of transforming weapon? Players with a bit of common sense could figure out that it was self-made. And in an actual battle, the weapon's greatest value and features had to be displayed, so it wasn't possible to hide such a weapon. Ye Xiu sighed. Right when he closed the equipment interface, he saw Chen Gu rush at him like lightning from the second floor. After running behind Ye Xiu, she asked, What weapon? What weapon? Self-made weapon, see for yourself. Ye Xiu helplessly opened it again. Wow, Chen Gu admired it. She was like every other player with 100,000 questions to ask, but she also knew that it wasn't appropriate to ask these sorts of things. You're playing as an unspecialized character because of this weapon, Chen Gu asked. Smart, Ye Xiu commended. You're too secretive. Chen Gu discovered that she needed to reevaluate Ye Xiu. This sort of person that had been kicked out of the professional circle was more profound than she had originally thought. Although she herself didn't know exactly how skilled the pros were. When have I ever hid secrets from you? Ye Xiu asked in reply. The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 52, Chapter 52. Picking a class. By the time Chen Guo finished looking at the 1,000 chance umbrella, Tang Ru had already returned downstairs. Ye Xiu and Chen Guo both looked at her without saying anything. How can you just leave your money there like that? Tang Ru walked to her original spot. She neatly folded the money on the table and handed it over to Ye Xiu. Chen Guo sighed. This girl really did take things seriously. She wouldn't back out on her word. Chen Guo now hoped Ye Xiu would hurry up and take the money and not let side issues keep popping up. Ye Xiu didn't let her down. He stood up to take the money. Although this was clearly what Chen Guo wanted, after seeing Ye Xiu get ready to take the money, Chen Guo immediately became angry. You have the nerve to take it, Chen Guo said. What's wrong? Ye Xiu and Tang Ru both said. Chen Guo lost. After all, in the end, she wasn't a part of the bet. I'll win that money back sooner or later, Tang Ru said when she handed over the money to Ye Xiu. I'll take responsibility and tell you, that's much harder than you think. Ye Xiu laughed. After putting the money in his pocket, he logged out of the game. He said goodbye and then left. Doesn't this guy just make you angry? Chen Guo grinded her teeth towards Tang Ru. Relax, relax, Tang Ru, who was looked down upon, said pleasantly. Hurry up and practice. Afterwards, ruthlessly sort out this guy and put him in his place. Chen Guo said. How big of a difference do you think there is between me and him? Tang Ru asked Chen Guo. This. Chen Guo reddened a bit. Even if Tang Ru didn't know how to play, only Ye Xiu dared to say this. In Chen Guo's eyes, Tang Ru was already considered an expert. Tang Ru was better than her, Ye Xiu even more so. Both of these players were better than her, so how could she see how skilled they were? To say nothing of the difference in their skill levels. If she could tell the difference in their skills, then she wouldn't have needed to randomly test for Ye Xiu and Tang Ru to PK. I really can't tell. Chen Guo could only admit this. Tang Ru lowered her head to look at Chasing Haze, who hadn't yet logged out. After a while she said, It looks like he's right. I can't even tell how far apart we are. I have to take a comprehensive course. Chen Guo was secretly delighted in her heart. This Tang Ru was finally interested in playing Glory, but she didn't show it in her face and said with a deadpan look, Luckily, the new server opened yesterday. I'll go and get you an account card. Okay. Tang Ru obediently let Chen Guo be bursting with joy. When she opened the internet cafe, she obviously had Glory account cards ready. She promptly took a card and helped her create a character. After choosing a name, she entered the game. The beginner village quests couldn't be any easier. If this was an ordinary day, Tang Ru would have already thrown aside this sort of easy task after half a minute at best. But today, she was unexpectedly serious. She even read parts of the beginner guidebook that even Chen Guo felt unnecessary. This girl finally used her seriousness for glory. Chen Guo felt a type of good feeling after obtaining such a positive outcome after so much effort. She was itching to start discussing a very important issue with Tang Ru. What class do you want to play? I still haven't thought about it, Tang Ru said. There's no need to be in a hurry. Before level 20, you can learn any skill from any class. You can try them all and see which class you find the most suitable, Chen Guo said. If you keep leveling and simply don't change classes, then you'll be an unspecialized character like Ye Xiu, right? Tang Ru asked. He's recklessly playing, don't learn from him. Chen Guo jumped in fright. Reckless playing? Tang Ru didn't understand. After a character reaches level 50, they need to complete a class awakening quest in order to continue gaining experience and leveling up. But unspecialized characters don't have a class awakening quest, so when they get to level 50, they have no way of leveling. This was the reason why the unspecialized playing style disappeared. Chen Guo explained. Didn't Ye Xiu say a moment ago that he could continue leveling when he got into the heavenly domain at level 50? Tang Ru said. Please. It's the heavenly domain. That dueling quest that you did for me was so difficult. How could a level 50 do it? Chen Guo said. Then Ye Xiu, he's crazy, Chen Guo interrupted Tang Ru. If he can do it and I can't, won't that mean he's better than me? Tang Ru said. Chen Guo was startled for a second and then immediately said, if he can do it, you can also try it. Anyone can start the Heavenly Domain skill challenges at level 50. There's no restriction for this. And more, Chen Guo followed. Do you remember Ye Xiu's weapon? That's the reason he chose to play as an unspecialized. That guy actually has a self-made weapon. The server just opened for 2 days. I don't know he got it. The more Chen Guo said, the more she doubted herself. This was one of the many questions she had, but she was too embarrassed to directly ask him. Self-made weapon, the extremely strong equipment that you said only professional players had, Tang Ru asked. These questions thoroughly exposed that she was a true newbie in glory. Right. Moreover, it's extremely powerful. Although it's only level 5, it's a silver equipment that supersedes orange equipment. It looks to me that this guy has the means to continue upgrading this silver weapon. Otherwise, there's no way he'd play unspecialized just for this level 5 silver weapon. Chen Guo said. How do you make a silver weapon? Tang Ru asked. Sister, your questions are too high-end. That's what I want to know, Chen Guo said. It would be better if you just became a launcher like me. You've also played my account card many times. You're most familiar with this class, so you'll definitely learn it quickly. Chen Guo didn't want to talk about self-made equipment with Tang Ru for too long. She was afraid that after describing the difficulty of self-making, she would excite Tang Ru into this direction instead of the game. That would be bad. Self-made equipment were truly too complicated. So many people had challenged it, but in the end, they all died doing so. Chen Guo didn't want Tang Ru to waste her energy doing this sort of task. Launcher, Tang Ru refused to comment. Although she didn't have much interest in glory before, she did play it ever so often. In her heart, she really wasn't too interested in the launcher class. She was more interested in those close combat classes. She felt that these classes required more skill. But Chen Guo was very fond of the launcher class. Tang Ru didn't want to just splash cold water on her. Right when she was thinking, she suddenly remembered the other class Chen Guo often talked about. Right, that one you often talked about. The one you said was the strongest. That's something God. What class was that? Battle God One Autumn Leaf, Chen Guo blurted out. After saying this, her expression dimmed. The King's Avatar Volume 1 The Banished Battle God Chapter 53 Battle Mage Right, that one. What class is that Battle God? Although Tang Ru couldn't even remember the famed name, Battle God One Autumn Leaf, Chen Guo's constant reminders left an imprint in her heart. Besides this, the only other one that left an even bigger imprint was the launcher Dancing Rain, directly because Chen Guo also played launcher. She was Chen Guo's #1 idol and the character Chen Guo talked the most about. While Tang Ru said this, she looked towards Chen Guo and immediately saw Chen Guo's face dim. What's wrong? Tang Ru jumped in fright. She knew Chen Guo for 2 years. Angry Chen Guo was a common occurrence, but sad Chen Guo was a first. Ye Xiu, retired, Chen Guo said. Ye Xiu, you mean One Autumn Leaf's owner, Tang Ru said. Yeah. Then One Autumn Leaf. One Autumn Leaf is still there, but Chen Guo couldn't clearly describe her concerns. In the Ice Gold Professional Alliance, characters and athletes were divided into 2 categories. For players that liked glory, some people admired those powerful characters, while others admired the athlete's excellent technique. As a result, for titles like Battle God, there were some that believed the title should be given to the character One Autumn Leaf, while some believed that it should be given to Ye Xiu, the athlete operating One Autumn Leaf. And in the middle, there were those in dispute. But gradually, similar disputes all gradually gave the title to the character. This was because the character was the Iron Army camp, while the athlete was just one of the numerous soldiers. Athletes would transfer clubs. Athletes would deteriorate and go past their prime. Athletes would eventually retire, but the character never would. As long as the club wanted to, the character could firmly stay in their hands and continue to be upgraded. The older it was, the more skill points it could have and the better the equipment. Currently, most of the world-shaking characters in Glory were all created in the first server and had already existed for nearly 10 years. Their operators had already changed who knew how many times, but their fame never fell. A flower may blossom again, but a person can never turn young again. As long as a strong character had a strong athlete controlling it, then its strength would be revealed. But the athlete, by natural law, no one could defeat the merciless killer that was time. Ye Xiu and One Autumn Leaf were a rare exception. Both the character and the operator had been together for 10 years, which was rarely seen in the alliance. Other characters experienced changes in their operators. Each and every one of those athletes disappeared behind the scenes, leaving behind their famed characters. But the title Battle God had been shared with Ye Xiu and One Autumn Leaf the entire time. From when this title was given, Battle God had always belonged to the both of them. Unfortunately, One Autumn Leaf was also a character, while Ye Xiu was merely an athlete. Athletes were destined to be the first to leave, while the character's fame would continue to be carried on. While other characters had already been handed over multiple times, it was only the first time for the Battle God. As a result, a large handful of players bitterly wept and, like Chen Guo, would sadden at the mention of the Battle God One Autumn Leaf. As for her, once Ye Xiu left, the Battle God title was no longer intact. A lot of hopeful feelings that she had were suddenly ripped apart just like this. Tang Ru didn't understand Chen Guo's grief. She could only quietly sit there accompanying her and hold her hand without saying a word. But all in all, Chen Guo was Chen Guo. She had already grieved yesterday. Being distressed over and over wasn't her style. After a while, her spirit had already lifted and she spoke towards Tang Ru. The Battle God's class was Battle Mage. What do you want to play that? Okay, I might one day become that One Autumn Leaf's owner. When that time comes, wouldn't I be the new Battle God? Tang Ru said. Ah, this goal is 1,000 times better than beating that whatever Ye Xiu. Little Tang, you have to try hard and reach this goal. Chen Guo smiled. Okay. Tang Ru also smiled and then nodded her head. Then do you want me to teach you about the Battle Mage right now? Chen Guo said. Yeah. Tang Ru nodded her head. The Battle Mage belongs to the Mage class. They use magic to strengthen themselves in battle in close combat. They are proficient in 2 weapons, poles and battle lances. Poles usually have an attack speed of 8, extremely quick. Battle lances usually have an attack speed of 2, fairly slow, but their damage and range are high. I personally like Battle Lance because they're more tyrannical. If it wasn't tyrannical, how could it be called Battle God? See, One Autumn Leaf also uses a Battle Lance. One time. Guo Guo. Tang Ru reminded Chen Guo that she was going off topic. Oh, Chen Guo coughed and continued explaining. The Battle Mage's main features is that they can buff their own attributes using magic. After awakening, they also have Battle Groove. Battle Groove is a passive skill that completely relies on the operator's skill. If you see that the Battle Mage gets stronger as he fights, don't be surprised. One Autumn Leaf was considered a Battle God because Ye Xiu's skill could. Guo Guo, Tang Ru was already helpless. Okay, let's look at a video. While you look, I'll explain, okay? Chen Guo said. Okay. Tang Ru nodded her head. Chen Guo didn't even need to look up videos on the internet. How could she be short of Battle God videos? She didn't know how many she had collected. After choosing one, she delightedly gave it to Tang Ru and explained it. After explaining it for a bit, the only words she said were gasps of surprise. Wow, look, this time. Whoa, an 88 combo. Do you know how much Battle Groove will buff his attributes? Ha, this stupid guy. He walked into the knock-up. Guo, Tang Ru helplessly said for the 3rd time. Don't you feel that I should look at more beginner-leveled videos? You want me to just start by learning from the greatest expert among battle mages, Tang Ru powerlessly said. Oh, so it's like this. Then let me look for a bit. The two girls immersed themselves in learning about the battle mage in this way, until an employee ran over to tell them that it was time to eat. The employee was impatiently driven away by Chen Guo, only until a voice which had irritated Chen Guo every time she heard it came. Oh, you're learning about the battle mage, Ye Xiu. Chen Guo immediately turned her head. What do you want? Do you mind? Little Tang wants to play as a battle mage, Ye Xiu asked. Yeah, Tang Ru nodded her head. I can teach you then, Ye Xiu said. Humph, no need. Chen Guo expressed her disdain. Boss, do you know what you just refused? Ye Xiu said seriously. Chen Guo completely ignored him and turned her head to Tang Ru. These are all battle mage guides written by Ye Xiu. Look, I've already ordered them for you. From shallow to deep, from attributes to skills to equipment, real combat skills, experience, technique, practice methods, and even a few collection of the best videos. Okay, Tang Ru nodded her head. Really, you don't want the actual person to teach. Do you really want to teach yourself? Ye Xiu mumbled. You go somewhere else. Can your teaching even compare to 0.1% of these guides? Chen Guo said. Sigh, you'd better not regret it, Ye Xiu sighed. So noisy. Chen Guo's head didn't even turn, but Tang Ru turned and smiled towards Ye Xiu. If I have any questions, I'll come ask you. Ha ha, you'll come across one soon. That guide you're looking at is from 9 years ago. There have been many changes in the game within those 9 years. Although you can still look at this guide, there are 4 places you have to pay attention to. The things mentioned there aren't suitable at all for the current battle mage. Ye Xiu said the King's Avatar Volume 1 The Banished Battle God Chapter 54 Chapter 54. Show me Tang Ru was still a newbie in this area, so she obviously didn't understand the situation. And Chen Guo, she played launcher. Although she had watched many wonderful videos on battle mages, she never truly researched the class. She had browsed the internet and clicked on guides just this afternoon. Chen Guo was recklessly relying on a hopelessly optimistic gamble. Her search words were battle mage and the author, Ye Xiu or One Autumn Leaf. Seeing a match, she picked the guide without thinking too much about it and arranged them for Tang Ru in volumes. But they had only started on the first page, and Ye Xiu already criticized it, saying that this guide was out of date in some places. Now that he mentioned it, it really had been 9 years. Who knew how many times glory had been tweaked, which class hadn't experienced changes? If there hadn't been a single change in 9 years, wouldn't that mean the players hadn't improved in that time? If it really was like this, then the game Glory wouldn't be so popular. The game also had time to grow. Are you saying the truth? Chen Guo asked Ye Xiu. Yup. Then which 4 places? Tang Ru asked. Why don't you two go eat dinner? I'll revise the guide for you, Ye Xiu said. Of these 2 people, one of them was engrossed in the game, while the other made a firm resolution to get engrossed in the game. They had researched the battle mage together and didn't think to eat. Once they heard Ye Xiu say this, they both felt a little hungry. Then we'll head to dinner first, Chen Guo asked for Tang Ru's opinion. Okay, sorry to trouble you. The latter half of Tang Ru's response was directed towards Ye Xiu. Go. Ye Xiu drove away the 2 of them. Not long after sitting down, he heard Chen Guo's cry of surprise. Why is today's dinner so luxurious? Who ordered it? Once she heard everyone say that it was Brother Yi, Chen Guo disdained him even more and said to Tang Ru, he really knows how to take advantage of other people. Ha ha, Tang Ru laughed. You too. After losing so many times, you don't feel bad. Chen Guo saw that Tang Ru didn't take the 1100 yuan she lost seriously at all. Although she had worked 2 years as a long-time employee at the internet cafe, Chen Guo had deliberately raised her salary. But Tang Ru really didn't do anything too different from other employees. In the internet cafe, how many things could a sister do? she could really only keep watch at the reception desk. As a result, her salary couldn't actually be raised by that much. 1,100 yuan couldn't be a small amount for Tang Ru, but Tang Ru didn't seem to mind. Her temper was the complete opposite of this boss Chen Guo's. With the popularity of Chen Guo's internet cafe, at worst, she could guarantee a net income of 1 to 200,000 a month. 1,000 yuan wasn't much for her, but it also hadn't been easy for Chen Guo to have the internet cafe develop to its current level. In addition, with a steady flow of customers, she didn't really have any habit of wastefully spending money. Even for Chen Guo, losing 1,000 yuan in a few casual bouts of PK made her heart ache for Tang Ru. "Of course," Tang Ru said. "You've lost all your money. What are you going to eat this month?" Chen Guo said. "Aren't you in charge of food?" Tang Ru smiled. Chen Guo was helpless. Her guarantee that the internet cafe took care of food and shelter raised a bunch of people who spent their income before they earned their next salary. "Hurry up and eat. After eating, let's see what new trick that guy's come up with," Chen Guo said. Meanwhile, Ye Xiu quickly revised the outdated parts. Afterwards, he looked at the materials Chen Guo arranged for Tang Ru. He saw that Miss High and Mighty Chen Guo's trademark awareness was extremely strong. She had picked everything that had Ye Xiu or one autumn leaf on it. Seeing this, Ye Xiu really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He cleaned up anything unnecessary, repeated, and outdated. He added in anything missing, deleted anything that could be deleted, fixed anything that could be fixed, and elaborated on anything that could be elaborated on. While busily working in this abyss of suffering, Chen Guo and Tang Ru finished eating and returned. Chen Guo glanced and saw that Ye Xiu only glimpsed at the guide she had looked hard for, and then threw it in the trash. She immediately rushed up to ask, "What are you doing? There's a bunch of useless repeated things in that messy pile of yours." "I'm helping you tidy it up," Ye Xiu said. "Really?" Chen Guo was skeptical. Although Ye Xiu always made her pissed, Chen Guo recognized his skill in glory. This Ye Xiu really was better than her by a lot. "Are you sure? These are all posts written by the god Ye Xiu." Chen Guo. "I'm sure. How could I not be if he knew he would also be very thankful for having the opportunity to let me tidy it up?" Ye Xiu said. "No good. Let me check that guide you threw into the trash." Chen Guo said. "If you can understand it, then go ahead," Ye Xiu laughed. Chen Guo turned gloomy. Truthfully, she had never played Battle Mage. She only had a bit of knowledge on the mid-game and late-game content in those guides. When she reached this content, Tang Ru had to figure it out on her own. But seeing Ye Xiu's very professional look, Chen Guo couldn't help but say, "Can you really teach?" "I can. You know everything about battle mages." "I do." "You're not afraid that little Tang's going to beat you after teaching her?" "Ha ha ha ha." Ye Xiu laughed. "How could it be that easy? The master leads the way, but it depends on you yourself to learn. Have you heard of this before? The theories are all the same, but whether or not you can learn it depends on you yourself. Even if I don't teach, the guides are public. If you spend the time, you can definitely learn it. My teaching will only save you some time. What you say is clear and logical." "Then let me ask you, if you want to increase hand speed, what should you do?" Chen Guo asked. "Absolute hand speed or effective hand speed?" Ye Xiu asked. "Obviously effective hand speed," Chen Guo said. Absolute hand speed was just how fast you could hit the keyboard and click the mouse with your eyes closed. If you couldn't use it in an actual battle, then it doesn't matter how fast you were. As a result, effective hand speed was more important. It was the Appum after getting rid of all of the useless actions. Ye Xiu groped around his pockets. He took out something and gave it to Chen Guo. "Take it and play." "What is it?" Chen Guo took it and looked. It was a palm-sized plastic board. On top were 3 rows with a total of 10 mouse heads. It was a mini whack-a-mole. Chen Guo turned so furious her nose almost went crooked. What type of trick was this? In the end, she heard Ye Xiu turn his head and say, "Try it." "Try what?" "The power switch is on the bottom. You can change the level, Turn it to the lowest level and try. I've modified it. I promise you'll love it, Ye Xiu said. Chen Guo was skeptical. She turned on the toy and the 10 mouse heads flashed. An electronic beep sounded out, which let Chen Guo set the levels using the mouse heads. Chen Guo pressed on the first head. After a small electronic tune played, the mouse heads began to flash. Chen Guo had played this type of mini whack-a-mole games before. She had to press whichever mouse head lit up, but the toy Ye Xiu gave her was much faster than what Chen Guo had expected. She hurriedly chased after the flashing lights and wildly pressed. Not even 10 seconds had passed when the mouse heads all flashed. They made a few sounds as if laughing at her and then announced the end of the game. 120 appum, Ye Xiu laughed. Chen Guo was baffled. People with an appum of 120 can barely go over 5 seconds. Go play with it. It'll help your reaction speed, Ye Xiu said. If your playing speed won't increase, then it's mainly because you can't react in time. The King's Avatar Volume 1 The Banished Battle God Chapter 55 Chapter 55 Surpassing the Guide Little Tang, do you want to try? Chen Guo handed the mini whack-a-mole to Tang Ru. She doesn't need it. This won't help her much. Her effective hand speed is probably around 200, but she's not familiar with the game. Without experience, her ability to judge is lacking, restricting her reaction speed. She still has space to improve, but she can only slowly grind it out in the game, Ye Xiu said. Then what about you? How fast is your playing hand speed? Chen Guo said. Me, I've already passed the increasing my hand speed stage. My 60 appum is more than enough to beat you, Ye Xiu said. Chen Guo suddenly thought of her first time seeing Ye Xiu's disabled level hand speed. Yet he was able to solo the Midnight Phantom Cat only relying on this hand speed. At the time, Chen Guo felt quite mystified. Now hearing that Ye Xiu could destroy her with 60 appum, Chen Guo wasn't mad at all. She had already felt that Ye Xiu wasn't as simple as he seemed, freely switching hand speeds. This was the biggest difference between professional and normal players. How much longer do you need for this? Chen Guo asked Ye Xiu about tidying up the guides. Still a bit longer. The guides Ye Xiu made didn't cover everything. There are guides by others that are quite good too. In a bit I'll help add them in. Actually, looking at the guides first without touching the game yet isn't good. It's best to experience the game first and have a certain amount of basics before looking at a guide, Ye Xiu said. Why? Wouldn't following a guide help you do less wrong things? Chen Guo said. The guide is only a summary of the author's experiences. The content inside only represents the person's experiences at that time. After a year or two has passed, or even a few months, someone will discover a better way than what the guide says. This isn't only because of game changes, but also because the player's skill levels are constantly increasing. Clear records only exist to be broken. The peak will always lie in the future. Guides are only references and shouldn't be blindly consulted. Otherwise, you'll never break through to the next step. Hearing this, Chen Guo could only stare blankly. She didn't want to believe that this reasoning had just come from that damned sloppy mouth. This reasoning ignored the god Ye Xiu that Chen Guo worshipped. If they were on an even level, then Chen Guo would definitely strangle the guy. But at this moment, she felt as if she didn't have any energy. Then, I'll play first. In the end, Tang Ru replied. She sat at the computer station next to Ye Xiu and inserted her account card. Ye Xiu nodded his head and turned his head towards Chen Guo. I'm going to play whack-a-mole. In this instant, Chen Guo couldn't help but feel a little skeptical on whether she was being toyed with. Playing whack-a-mole will only help improve your reaction speed. To actually increase your effective hand speed, you have to practice in game, Ye Xiu said. Okay, Chen Guo nodded her head. Okay, see you later, Ye Xiu said. Yeah, Chen Guo agreed. She turned around and left. After walking a few steps, she finally reacted. What's with this guy's attitude? Who was the boss? Thinking of this, she turned her head to look. However, she saw that Ye Xiu looked so serious working on the guides. He didn't have any of that half-dead look. Chen Guo froze, stumped for words. She unexpectedly felt too embarrassed to disturb him. Looking again at Tang Ru, she saw that Tang Ru was concentrated on the game. After looking at the whack-a-mole in her hands for a while, she silently walked away. Little Tang had talent. Ye Xiu was already extremely strong. But her, Chen Guo sat at the reception desk in a daze. She herself really liked this game and also hoped to get good at the game, but Chen Guo knew that it wasn't possible for her to break through to the next step. 27 years old. In terms of esports, this was already a time to recall memories of the past instead of looking towards the future. Tang Ru smugly entered the game, but after a short while, she had already suffered from setbacks. Her 200 appum couldn't solve this problem. Ye Xiu had also encountered the problem, and Chen Guo did too the other night playing on her low-leveled account. The problem of too many people in the beginner area. She received quests with great difficulty and took forever to kill a monster. With so many people in the beginner village, no matter how fast your reaction or hand speed was, you would always fail to kill a monster. Tang Ru was tossed from side to side and beaten black and blue, but persevered on. After half an hour, she finally leveled up from level 1 to level 2. Tang Rout let out a sigh and looked towards Ye Xiu. He was still tidying up the guides and was still focused as before. His concentration made even Tang Ru feel amazed. Right when she was looking, she saw the focused Ye Xiu put his left hand into his pocket and take out a cigarette box. He shook twice and the cigarette jumped into his mouth. Throughout the entire process, his eyes hadn't shifted away from the screen at all. His right hand moved the mouse back and forth without ever stopping either. Just when he was about to light up the cigarette, he was suddenly poked. He turned around and saw Tang Ru. "You can't smoke here. Guo Guo will get angry," Tang Ru warned Ye Xiu. Oh, Ye Xiu's smoking was a subconscious movement. He didn't need to think about it. After Tang Ru's warning, he discovered that he somehow had a cigarette in his mouth. Their seating was in the corner, however, and was fairly far from the reception desk. Besides Tang Ru and him, there was no one else there. "She can't see it, so I'll smoke one cigarette. Don't tell her." Ye Xiu still sneakily lit up his cigarette. In the end, he even turned around and politely asked, "Do you want one?" "No thanks." "Have you smoked before?" "I've tried, but I didn't like it," Tang Ru said. "Oh," Ye Xiu nodded his head. He extended his head out and looked at Tang Ru's screen. "What level?" "Level 2, Tang Ru said. Go Tang Ru. "This Lord Grim is you, right?" Tang Ru suddenly asked. Ye Xiu looked towards the 10th server's dungeon records on Tang Ru's screen. Lord Grim's great name hung on 4 of the lists. "You're already planning on breaking my record," Ye Xiu grinned. "I can't for first clears, right?" Tang Ru said. "Yeah," Ye Xiu nodded his head. As a result, Tang Ru's gaze fell on Frost Forest's clear record. "This record can't be broken on your own," Ye Xiu said. I still need 4 others to cooperate, right?" Tang Ru said. "Later on there will even be 10-player ones, 20-player ones, and even more." Ye Xiu said. Tang Ru was silent. He didn't know what she was thinking. "I've finished this guide. Where should I put it?" With the help of the cigarette, Ye Xiu finished tidying the guide. "The desktop is fine, but you can do it this way." Tang Ru went over to show him. Internet cafe computers all automatically rebooted, but employees could use an admin account to avoid this. Even in these few simple movements, Tang Ru's nimbleness could be seen. "How did you practice your hand speed?" Ye Xiu suddenly asked. Hearing this, Tang Ru's movement stopped for a bit. Ye Xiu's keen "I saw this minute change." "I never practiced it. I was just born like this," Tang Ru said. "Really?" Ye Xiu smiled and didn't say anything more. He stood up from his seat and gave it to Tang Ru. "You continue here. If you have any questions on the game or the guide, just come ask me." Ye Xiu said. "Thanks, and you?" Tang Ru saw that Ye Xiu was about to leave. "I'm going to the smoking area. That place is a bit safer." Ye Xiu said. The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 56. Chapter 56. Leveling isn't easy when Ye Xiu passed by the reception desk. He saw Chen Gu sitting there with the mini whack-a-mole in her hands. She had a bitter look on her, so he didn't say hello to her and ran to the smoking area to find a computer. Nowadays, Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm wasn't well known only in the game. Ye Xiu himself was well known in the internet cafe. Almost all the Glory players there knew that Lord Grimm was this internet cafe's network manager. He also had a self-made silver weapon. Nearly all of the players in the smoking area knew Lord Grimm. Many of them came in the afternoon after work and played until now without leaving. Seeing Ye Xiu come, they all called out to say hello to him. Ye Xiu also casually waved at the people who greeted him. After putting the cigarette in his mouth and lighting it, he entered the game. He immediately suffered from a bombardment of messages. After going online for 5 seconds, the message prompt kept on flashing, flashing, flashing. After looking at them, he saw that they were all the usual greetings. 7 Fields and the others said, "Brother Expert, you're here." Immersed Jade, "I pay respects to God." Blue Brook Guild's representative Blue River invited him to level with them. Tyrannical Ambitions representative Endless Night reserved him for some midnight dungeon runs. Ye Xiu replied to each of them. 7 Fields, Immersed Jade, and the others each replied with a smiley face. Blue River's leveling invitation and Endless Night's dungeon reservation were both tactfully refused. Each of these players worded their messages to Ye Xiu very carefully. After Ye Xiu replied to all of them, they temporarily went quiet. But more messages quickly popped up. Piles upon piles of friend requests filled the screen. "I'm that famous already." Ye Xiu scratched his head. He had only helped set a new clear record and nothing more. The big guilds might have recognized that he was an expert, but they shouldn't have went so far as to kneel down and worship him, right? Ye Xiu ignored all of these notifications. In the end, someone to the side bumped into him. "Brother, why don't we be friends?" "Huh?" Ye Xiu turned his head. He discovered that quite a few internet cafe guests had walked towards him and waved their hands to greet him. "Brother, let's be friends." These friend requests should all be from this internet cafe. Ye Xiu started sweating. Due to the opening of the new server, the amount of 10th server players in the internet cafe was relatively large. Most of them were just playing for fun and didn't take the game too seriously. But some of them liked to make friends with experts. If they could become friends now, then their relationship would be more solid. As a result, there were quite a few people who wanted to add Ye Xiu as their friend. "Oh, what are your names?" In front of them, he felt too embarrassed to directly turn down everyone. Ye Xiu asked everyone their game IDs and added each and every one of them as friends. After a short while, Lord Grimm's friends list had already reached 37 people. In addition, none of them were offline. Besides the players he had met in the past 2 days like 7 Fields, the rest were all happy internet cafe guests. Although most of them were from the smoking area, there were also a few people who ran over especially to make friends with him. With such a long list, Ye Xiu couldn't match the real person and their in-game character. Riding on wave of momentum, one player joked, "We're all from the same internet cafe. We should all form a guild together." This call didn't receive many responses. So far, Glory only had 10 servers in total. Adding in the communal heavenly domain, it wasn't rare to meet with someone from the same server. Besides Ye Xiu's expert status as a dungeon record holder, everyone lined up to make friends with him because they all knew something Blue Rivers and the others didn't. Lord Grimm had a silver weapon. This thing was more eye-catching than a dungeon record. If Blue River and the others knew that Lord Grimm was hiding this, they would have tried to rope him in even more crazily. The proposal to establish a guild only received a few cold, hollow laughs. The brother that suggested it felt extremely embarrassed, so he shut his mouth, playing on his own. Everyone wore headphones and once again immersed themselves into the game world. On the other hand, Ye Xiu actively sent a friend request to someone else. Soft Mist. This was Tang Ru's in-game name. Ye Xiu didn't know what it was supposed to mean. He reckoned that she took the mist from chasing haze, took soft from her name Tang Ru and just randomly put them together. TL note. Haze is made up of two words in Chinese. Mist is one of those words. Ru from Tang Ru means soft. After sending the request, he didn't see a response. Ye Xiu supposed it was because this little sister was too unfamiliar with the game and couldn't even notice this type of system message. Sending more wouldn't work. Sending one would flash in the same way that sending 8 would. As a result, he just left it for now. After organizing the items in his inventory, Ye Xiu prepared to kill monsters and level. The biggest problem with the beginner village was that there were too many people. But after leaving the beginner village in the level 20 stage, the biggest problem at the moment was still too many people. There were multiple beginner villages to share the server traffic, but after the beginner village, everyone came together onto a single piece of land. Although this land was larger than the beginner village by several times, every level 20 flocked here after leaving the beginner village. In the end, the situation was basically the same as beginner village. The area surrounding Bulls also had vast crowds of people. Last night, Ye Xiu took advantage of the very early hours in the morning, when there were less people online, to grab and complete a few quests. But now was just at the peak of internet activity, so doing quests would only make leveling slower. Receiving quests and completing quests both required lining up. Killing monsters had to be scrambled over. Just thinking of all this made him shiver in terror. Rather than quests, it'd be better to look for a firm location to clear monsters and level. At this stage, what leveling area had fewer people? Of course, it was the higher-leveled areas. Players would lose experience when they died in glory, so most players wouldn't rashly take risks. They preferred to line up for quests, line up for monsters, and level up steadily. If they weren't experts, they wouldn't even think of going to high-leveled areas to level. In glory, dungeons were the fastest way to level. The next fastest was completing quest lines, and the slowest was clearing monsters. But in the current circumstances, he no longer had any dungeon entries left and he'd have to wait in line to do quests, so clearing monsters were the most optimal choice. Difficulties and so on, those weren't in Ye Xiu's considerations. With his peak level of skill, as long as the NPC's level wasn't too high above his, then there wouldn't be any problem. The experience gained by killing monsters depended on the level difference. This difference still used 5 as a standard. If the monsters were 5 levels above or below the player's level, then the player would only receive minimal experience. Within that range, the higher the level, the greater the experience. As a result, monsters that were 5 levels higher than the player gave the most experience. 5 levels didn't sound like a lot, but in glory, each level higher had the problem of level suppression. In glory, levels weren't only used to define players. Physical attack, magic attack, bleed, stun, root, and other status effects had levels too. When the system didn't display the difference in levels, then these levels would all be the same as the player's level. In other words, the current Lord Grimm's level was 21. If he used double stab to cause a hidden boss to bleed, then the bleed's level would be 21. Level 21 damage or a level 21 bleed would have a reduced effect on level 22 and up monsters. The higher the level gap, the more obvious the reduction. This type of situation was called level suppression. The difference between being high-leveled and low-leveled wasn't just the difference in attributes and equipment. The concealed calculations of level suppression added to the difficulties of challenging those at a higher level. The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 57. Chapter 57. Boneyard Lord Grimm was now level 21. Killing level 26 monsters would give him the most experience, but it wouldn't give much more. With each higher level, the experience would increase by 2%, so a 5-level difference would give an extra 10%. However, with these 5 levels, the difficulty increase wasn't as simple as just 10%. In addition, if players went to level alone, without even talking about the dangers, the 10% benefit couldn't be seen due to the increased time needed to gain the experience. It might even be less efficient than killing monsters at the same level. But the current situation was special. Ye Xiu didn't care about this small amount of extra experience when killing higher-leveled monsters. Rather, he did it to avoid the vast crowds of people and to look for a quiet place to level. After sorting his equipment, Ye Xiu moved Lord Grimm to the level 2326 area, Boneyard. Boneyard wasn't only the name of a leveling area, it was also the name of the dungeon. It was the same as Frost Forest. The areas outside Frost Forest were level 2023 leveling areas and had a large amount of wild monsters. Deeper into the forest were entrances to the Frost Forest dungeon. Similarly, Boneyard had a level 2327 Boneyard dungeon. Players like Blue Brook Guild's Blue River, these sorts of high-leveled players, had already conquered the Boneyard dungeon. The records showed that the Boneyard first clear party was done by tyrannical ambition. Ye Xiu saw that Endless Night's name was there. As for the other 3 members in yesterday's party, they weren't on there. It looked like they weren't tyrannical ambition's first-string characters. The Boneyard clear record had already been broken 4 times. The newest record was currently held by Herb Garden. As for Boneyard's 3 hidden bosses, Blue Brook Guild first cleared 2 of them. It looked like these dungeon records spun in these 3 great guilds' palms. Ye Xiu didn't pay too much attention to all that. Lord Grimm quickly reached Boneyard, and sure enough, there weren't many players here. Currently, most players were level 21, and most of them stayed at Frost Forest to scramble for monsters. There were already level 22, 23 monsters suppressing them there, and the monsters in Boneyard would be even more so. After picking a good place to clear monsters, Lord Grimm shook the 1000-chance umbrella. It transformed into the battle lance form and slaughtered its way over. 8 midnight cat fingernails adorned the 1000-chance umbrella, which was equivalent to giving the battle lance a new tip. Adding on the replaced linking axle, these changes upgraded the battle lance form to level 15. Besides this, the original form and other classes' weapon forms were still level 5 and naturally couldn't be compared to the upgraded battle lance form. The Boneyard's monsters were the same as the skeleton graveyards. They were undead monsters. Zombies, skeletons, skeleton archers, skeleton mages, etc. They were levels 23-26. Their main feature was that they had high damage and high defense, but moved relatively slowly. With Ye Xiu's skill, these sort of NPCs weren't any threat. After controlling Lord Grimm to rush forward, he chose an area and began killing monsters there. Ye Xiu killed very casually. He didn't overly pursue crucial hits, combos, juggling, back attacks, and those effect-inducing attacks. In order to fully execute these technical moves, he would need to concentrate more, move faster, micro faster, and all of these things drained his energy. He was only leveling, that's all. Ye Xiu wasn't planning on fighting like he had been in the Professional Alliance finals. Fighting and resting, Lord Grimm may not have killed monsters that quickly, but he was extremely stable. Compared to attacks, Ye Xiu paid more attention to carefully dodging, which made it so that he never needed to run away and rest because he was low on life. He only rested after he ran out of mana. In Glory, food and potions were recovery items. Food had no cooldown but couldn't be used in combat. It restored a lot and recovered it quickly too. Potions weren't as effective as food, but they could be used while in combat. At a crucial point, they could be used as a last resort. But the better the potion's effects, the longer the cooldown. Moreover, potions of the same type shared a cooldown, so it wasn't possible to drink multiple health potions of different levels. NPCs sold food and potions, but they were of the lowest level and were costly. Besides obtaining them from killing monsters, of the secondary professions, the cooks could cook food and alchemists could make potions. Each player could learn 2 secondary professions, but only one of them could undergo job advancement. That's right, secondary professions had job advancements. Once a player reached level 50, the secondary profession could only be leveled further after completing the job advancement. At the moment, the new server had only been played on for 2 days. Aside from the big guilds, no one else had begun learning secondary skills. The alchemists and cooks of every big guild still weren't able to supply enough for their own respective guilds, so they didn't sell their products at the market. Players could only swallow their anger and buy high from the NPCs. The small amount of money they earned from killing monsters and completing quests were all spent on potions. Ye Xiu was no exception. This sort of investment in the early stages of the game was absolutely necessary. But by relying on his outstanding skill, he was able to save quite a bit by not having to spend much on health potions and food. His money was mostly used on the mana recovery items. He was already quite frugal compared to normal players. After clearing monsters for around an hour, Lord Grim escaped from battle again and drank to recover mana. Ye Xiu also lit a cigarette to rest a little. Right when he did so, a message appeared. Opening it, he saw it was system prompt. Soft Mist has accepted your friend request. After an hour, Tang Ru finally found Ye Xiu's friend request. Another message was sent. Sorry, I just saw it. Tang Ru and Chen Guo really were different. She wasn't like Chen Guo, who actively looked to make friends with others. She wouldn't treat people too warmly, but she didn't make you feel cold. When you spoke, you would feel that she listened very attentively. When she spoke, you would feel that she was speaking to you. If the way Chen Guo talked with others was very wild and street-like, then Tang Ru was scholarly, reserved, proper, and polite. Besides the time when she lost a bit of control saying again, 10 times in a row, he couldn't find any faults on her. Ye Xiu believed that this girl definitely had some sort of background. This sort of self-restraint and temperament reflected a good education. Moreover, she had that fast hand speed. When Ye Xiu asked about how she practiced her hand speed, she hesitated. This made Ye Xiu convinced that her hand speed wasn't some sort of innate talent, but rather a result from practicing. This could also be seen from her hands. She was the same as Ye Xiu. She was extremely careful with her hands and took good care of them. Ye Xiu was certain that these weren't hands trained through playing games. Pro players, left and right hands weren't completely the same because most pro players used their left hands for the keyboard and the right hand for the mouse. The two moved completely differently, but Tang Ru's left and right hands moved exceptionally balanced and steady. This unexpectedly made her left and right hands uncoordinated when she played the game. If his guess was correct, Ye Xiu believed that these quick hands were trained through playing an instrument. It doesn't matter. If you have any questions, just message me. Ye Xiu saw that Tang Ru wasn't ordinary, but he wasn't too interested in looking into her background. Truthfully, he himself still had to figure out what exactly his future path was. Closing Tang Ru's chat box, Ye Xiu was about to control Lord Grim to kill monsters again when suddenly, he heard a fit of fast footsteps from his headphones. Someone swiftly flew past Lord Grim. With a swing of a pole, the monster, which Lord Grim was about to attack, was knocked into the air. The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 58, Chapter 58, Kill Stealing Senseless. Ye Xiu could only give this evaluation towards this sort of kill stealer. Boneyard didn't have many people. There were plenty of monsters for players to kill, but this guy just unexpectedly stole his target. This type of evil kill stealing was mostly done to show off their own skill. This player held a pole in his hands. Magic fluctuated under his foot. He was a genuine battle mage. The magic fluctuations under his feet were a buff from the battle mage's signature skill, Chaser. Chasers could be triggered through several different battle mage skills for a total of 5. After triggering a chaser, they would circle around the battle mage's body for 30 seconds. Within those 30 seconds, the chaser could fly out and attack the target. After injuring or killing the target, the character would be buffed for 20 seconds. At level 20, battle mages could learn one chaser, Neutral Chaser. It was triggered through Dragon Tooth and did the lowest damage among the 5 chasers. The buff it gave increased the character's movement speed. A level 1 Neutral Chaser increased movement speed by 1%, and the max level 20 increased movement speed by 20%. Chasers were the battle mage's most distinguishable feature, which was why it is said that they used magic to increase their fighting strength. Although Lord Grimm was already level 20, he didn't have the option to learn this skill. This battle mage used this skill very proficiently. After knocking the monster into the air, he quickly moved behind the monster and then stabbed with Dragon Tooth, completing an aerial and back attack. A neutral chaser condensed onto the pole tip and flashed to his side. Depending on how the attacks were executed, there were differences between the triggered chasers: small, medium, large. Although the size didn't affect the buff given, it did affect the chaser's damage. In Glory, battle masters were easy to learn but difficult to master. The usage of chasers as well as the technical requirements for Battle Groove all made it difficult to play proficiently. This guy turned around and just happened to face Lord Grimm. Even after kill stealing, this guy still continued to show off in front of him. Ye Xiu looked and felt that this guy wasn't ordinary. Not talking about his flaunting, he could tell just by looking at the character's mocking face. What a disharmonious face. Neither the game's appearance editor nor a random creation could make such a conflicting result. Ye Xiu shook his head. He didn't think that he would be tangled with such a show-off king over a small monster. Who would have thought that, after the show-off king turned around and flaunted in front of Lord Grimm twice, he would suddenly make a mistake? The monster, which had originally been in the air, fell to the ground. Ye Xiu couldn't help but laugh. Right when he was going to leave, he heard this person say his name, Lord Grimm. Yeah, Ye Xiu heard this and turned Lord Grimm around. That person walked towards Lord Grimm while the monster chased after. So it was you, the other side said. You are. Ye Xiu looked at this guy's 1,000 creations, no idea. Was it someone from the internet cafe who he just friended? Ye Xiu opened up his friends and list was about to look when the person said, I heard you're quite good. Come, let's compare notes. Who are you? There were 30 or so people on his friends list. Ye Xiu quickly glanced at it but didn't see the name 1,000 creations. That's not important. The important point is that I want to duel you, 1,000 creations said. Ye Xiu didn't say anything else and made Lord Grimm turn around to leave. Hey, don't leave, 1,000 creations immediately said, but the half-fought monster was still attacking him. 1,000 creations used a sky strike to knock up the monster and then used falling flower palm. The monster he fought was blown away and just happened to smash into Lord Grimm. After leaving Beginner Village, the system no longer protected players, so players could now PK each other. Right when this monster looked as if it smashed into Lord Grimm suddenly turned his body. Taking out his battle lance, the monster was stabbed in mid-air. With a wave of his arm, the monster fell to the ground. He then used a circle swing to finish the combo, killing off the monster that 1,000 creations had blown towards him. You really do have some skills, but I still advise that you go to the arena with me so you don't lose any experience. 1,000 creations said this, but the other side didn't reply back. The other side did the same as him. He used a sky strike at a monster and then used falling flower palm to knock the monster to him. But this time, the falling flower palm was done quicker, and the monster flew out towards him. Humph! Thousand Creations snorted in disdain. He stabbed it with his pole and was about to do what Lord Grimm had done. He also used a circle swing to finish off the blown-away monster. The pole easily executed it. Thousand Creations was already praising himself, thinking that his previous action was quite cool. But who would have thought that the monster that was flying towards him suddenly fell to the ground? The pole unexpectedly stabbed at air. Thousand Creations was stunned. If this wasn't a coincidence, then this guy had actually used falling flower palm with just the right strength and also calculated that he'd use circle swing to receive it. As a result, the monster was blown away to just outside of the circle swing's range, making his pole miss. What type of terrifying microing was this? You still have a ways to go. When Thousand Creations heard this, he immediately moved his camera over. Lord Grimm was already walking away minding his own business, while he himself was being attacked by the monster he missed. You'd better not leave. People who love to show off naturally were most afraid of losing face. Now that he was being played with and looked down upon, Thousand Creations wouldn't forgive him. He once again blasted the monster over and chased after him at the same time. Lord Grimm showed his skills once again. He lifted his hand and used Dragon Tooth. The monster that was flying over was staved off in midair. Following up with a sky strike, he hit the monster high up into the air and then used double stab. The monster opened up its arms and hugged towards Thousand Creations. FCK, Thousand Creations, who had rushed forward too fast, didn't have time to react. He didn't think that Lord Grimm would play around with this monster for so long before hitting it back. The flying monster hit his face. From a first-person view, the entire screen was filled with a repulsive, rotting zombie corpse, utterly disgusting. Thousand Creations was hit down onto the ground by the zombie. After pushing away the zombie, he immediately got up, but he discovered that the zombie had latched onto his thigh and opened his rotting mouth about to bite down. Thousand Creations beat it with his pole. After killing off this zombie with great difficulty, he heard creaking bone sounds from his headphones. He didn't know when, but a skeleton had aggroed onto him. The skeleton raised its machete and charged at him. "Don't you like kill stealing? Take your time," Lord Grimm called out. Thousand Creations immediately looked towards him. This guy had already gathered 4 monsters in that short amount of time. At this moment, a falling flower palm exploded out, and the 4 monsters were smashed towards Thousand Creations. The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 59. Chapter 59. Are you playing with a child? 4 monsters. 4 directions. Adding on the skeleton holding a machete, Thousand Creations couldn't run away this time. The chasers and whatnot had already disappeared far away along with the zombie that he had thrown down onto the ground. The camera circled round and round. And all around him were these undead monsters' bones and rotting flesh. Undead monsters moved relatively sluggishly, so they got up quite slowly. Thousand Creations was the first one among them to stand up. His camera angle turned. This time Lord Grimm didn't leave. Carrying his battle lance, Lord Grimm ran over in large strides. Surprised, Thousand Creations couldn't help but jump backwards. After jumping, he felt extremely regretful again. Why did he hide? Wasn't he the one who wanted to teach him a lesson? At this moment, the sluggish monsters all climbed back up. Although these 4 monsters had smashed into Thousand Creations, their aggro was still on Lord Grimm. The machete-wielding skeleton's target was originally on Thousand Creations, but it had just been smashed by the 4 monsters, which could be considered as Lord Grimm's attack. Its aggro was also on Lord Grimm now. After the 5 monsters got up, they rushed towards Lord Grimm. Thousand Creations had planned to first clear the monsters and then properly fight a round with Lord Grimm. But in the end, Lord Grim's battle lance had already stabbed towards the monsters, engaging in an intense battle. His viewpoint never turned towards him either. Could it be that this guy only wants to fight the monsters and not me? Are these 5 undead monsters more valuable than me? Hey! Thousand Creations yelled. Oh, you want a monster? Here's one. Have fun. Lord Grim uppercutted and thrusted. A monster was hit over to him and steadily fell in front of Thousand Creations' feet. Thousand Creations was baffled. He had never felt this sort of feeling before. In the past, every time he said to show off, the guys who had their kills stolen were all utterly infuriated. Some even immediately attacked him. But in the end, they were beaten down. That sort of feeling felt so good. But this time, the other side's response made him feel extremely childish. He had gathered 5 monsters and hit over one towards him whenever convenient. This move seemed as if it were saying, "Little child, don't be noisy. Uncle's got candy for you." Thousand Creations stared blankly, not moving. The monster that fell in front of him was still aggroed onto Lord Grim. After crawling back up, it rushed back. "What? You don't want it?" Lord Grim actually asked him. Thousand Creations felt an extremely strong urge to gang up with the skeletons and zombies and beat this guy up. "I'll wait until you finish killing the monsters before we properly fight a round." Thousand Creations' tone suddenly became serious. He wasn't as sloppy as before when he was trying to provoke him. "No need," Lord Grim replied to him. "Why?" Thousand Creations blurted it out and then immediately regretted it. The other side had already said, "You still have a ways to go," once. Why did he need to give him another chance to say it again? No time. In the end, Lord Grim said this. Thousand Creations' cheeks streamed with tears. Child, he really was a child that annoyed the adult to play with him. In response, the adult would say to the child, "Uncle's busy, be obedient, play by yourself." He was being treated like this. Thousand Creations didn't know what to say. He might as well just wait until he finishes killing off the monsters. Thousand Creations came up with this plan. As a result, he quietly waited on the side. But at the same time, those 5 monsters wouldn't be so quick to finish off. Should he try and help him? But he immediately felt that he wasn't in a position to do so. As a result, he felt that he might as well just kill a monster to pass the time. But when he finished killing the monster and turned his camera angle back to Lord Grim, there were still 5 monsters. Kill another one then. After killing one, why were there still 5 monsters there? That guy's skill wasn't bad. It didn't make sense for him to take so long. Thousand Creations was at a loss. But after looking more carefully, were these 5 monsters the same as the previous 5? Right when he was unsure, a skeleton was stabbed and then collapsed into a pile of bones. Soon after, he saw Lord Grim, bringing the other monsters, pull a new one and continue fighting with 5 monsters. Thousand Creations threw up blood. He was waiting for this guy to finish off the monsters and duel with him, but this guy didn't take him seriously at all. That guy was concentrated on leveling. Thousand Creations grew angry. He decided to help him. Wrong, he wasn't helping him, he was disturbing him. He was going to continue stealing until this guy's patience ran out. Thus, Thousand Creations rushed forward and began stabbing at the 5 monsters that Lord Grim had gathered. Lord Grim seemed to shoot a glance at him. Immediately following, Thousand Creations received a party invite. "FCK, who wants to form a party with you? I'm here to steal." Thousand Creations angrily declined the invite and continued to kill. The 5 monsters were killed faster now, but after looking at the experience distribution, the expert caser Thousand Creations was thoroughly defeated this time. Because the 2 didn't form a party if they attacked the same monster, then the monster's experience would be shared. The first blow and last blow made up for, of the experience gained. The other was determined by how much damage they did. Thousand Creations obviously didn't make the first hit and he had originally planned to steal the last hit. But in the end, he was unable to take the last hit either. Adding on to total damage done, he was also below Lord Grimm, so he was only able to get a pitiful amount of experience. And in this situation, all of the items dropped belonged to Lord Grimm. But the even more irritating part was that before the 5 monsters fell down, Lord Grimm had already pulled new monsters and continued to fight non-stop. 1,000 Creations tried to steal again, but met a tragic end just like the last time. In the end, all he did was help Lord Grimm kill monsters faster. Moreover, most of the experience went to the other side, while he ate the small leftovers. Seeing it like this, Lord Grimm hadn't suffered any losses, while he himself had been squeezed for labor. 1,000 Creations was so angry he almost lost consciousness. After this wave, he would actively pull monsters and bring them back. But this time, Lord Grimm brought the monsters away from him, leaving 1,000 Creations with the monsters he pulled. 1,000 Creations' cheeks streamed with tears. What was he doing? He quickly cleared away the monsters in front of him and rushed forward. "Hey, I'm going to join these monsters and attack you. Stop being so noisy. Go level up," the other side said indifferently. 1,000 Creations clenched his teeth and brandished the battle pole. He was about to hit Lord Grimm when he suddenly heard, "Huh, why are you guys leveling together?" 1,000 Creations immediately turned his head. A party of Blue Brook Guild members was walking towards them. The person talking was the 10th server Blue Brook Guild's guild leader, Blue River. 1,000 Creations put away the pole and was about to run. "Where are you going, 1,000 Creations?" Blue River yelled. 1,000 Creations' cheeks streamed with tears. "Guild leader, you have no brains. I don't have the guild name on top of my head, so why are you trying to expose my identity?" So he ran but sent a message to the guild. "Pretend you mistook me for someone else. What are you doing?" Blue River didn't understand the situation. "I've offended Lord Grimm," 1,000 Creations said. What have you done? Did you steal his monsters?" Blue River understood his subordinate's faults. I was about to steal," 1,000 Creations cried. Even though he came to offend Lord Grimm, he was the one who felt bad. How wrong was that? The King's Avatar Volume 1, The Banished Battle God, Chapter 60. Chapter 60. Wild Boss 1,000 Creations was a member of Blue Brook Guild. Even though Ye Xiu made his head and face filthy with dirt, he was considered a rare expert among players. His individual strength might not be weaker than the so-called 5 great experts. In order to have a name like the 5 great experts, a player first had to have incredible strength. Next, they also had to have incredible popularity. Once there were many supporters, the 5 great were made. But 1,000 Creations. He had a bit of popularity, but he had an incredibly bad fault. He liked to steal. Blue Brook Guild was one of the 3 great guilds, but because of this, they had high expectations for their guild members. Although they didn't go as far as requiring that members lay low, but stealing, that sort of nasty behavior, was forbidden by the guild. No one could complain about this kind of rule. The sort of powerful but arrogant and despotic guild that formed parties to steal were destined to fail. Their guild members' inner qualities were too poor. But unfortunately, 1,000 Creations had this kind of hobby. Moreover, he was also an expert, a relatively rare expert too. The guild didn't want him because of his inner quality, but they were also unwilling to part with such an expert. In the end, they could only turn a blind eye to his actions. Fortunately, 1,000 Creations could be considered tactful. Whenever he did a misdeed, he never showed the guild's name, so a good deal of bullied players didn't put the debt on Blue Brook Guild. This time, when the 10th server opened, no one knew why this guy just signed up to participate on a whim. Although this guy hadn't caused any problems for their guild yet, he made them feel as if he were a ticking time bomb. Seeing that he actively signed up to go the new server, the guild leader immediately approved and increased his rewards. In the end, he kicked the time bomb to Blue River, making Blue River pray that the time bomb wouldn't explode. Blue River's cheeks streamed with tears. The opening of the new server was a time when players often killed monsters to level up. It was as if this time bomb was baking on a stove. Fortunately, the new server was packed with people in the beginning, so everyone stole. Thousand Creations took pleasure in showing off his strength and didn't stand out all. As for later, Blue River planned on putting this guy in his party when leveling. Watching over him, he could lessen the probability of him going out and stealing. But in the end, the second day since the new server's opening hadn't yet finished, and the time bomb had already exploded. Not only that, it didn't explode at any other time. It unfortunately exploded on their most important talent, Lord Grimm. Blue River was somewhat angry. The guild had clearly warned him many times that this talent had to be won over. If anyone saw him, they had to try and deepen their relationship and make friends with him. Thousand Creations should have seen this message. But this punk's method of making friends was seeking stealing. Blue River knew that this wasn't the time to be confused. Because Lord Grimm was someone he was determined to pull into the guild, then he couldn't hide from him that Thousand Creations was also from Blue Brook Guild. If he pretended to not know him, then what about later, that idiot? Blue River cursed and then ran up to Lord Grimm. He laughed out loud and greeted, "What a coincidence! Why are you here too?" "Leveling," Ye Xiu said. "Haha, don't mind that punk. In these 2 days, everyone in the guild has been talking about and praising you." "That punk probably didn't feel too good, so he deliberately looked for you to make trouble," Blue River said. How could Blue River have handled the matter more brilliantly? First, he covered up Thousand Creations' intent to steal. He said Thousand Creations was jealous of Lord Grimm's fame and power, which was why he deliberately searched for him, looking for trouble. This was easy to understand. In addition, he had unintentionally showed his guild's admiration for Lord Grimm. He had flattered him without batting an eyelid. Unfortunately, Ye Xiu knew that Thousand Creations stole first. After seeing who he had stolen from, he had jealously challenged him. But that was all after he stole. Fortunately, Ye Xiu didn't feel like getting involved with all this, so he casually laughed. "The child's pretty naughty." Yeah, look, he even ran, afraid that I'd scold him," Blue River said. If Thousand Creations had been switched with someone else, then he would have yelled for that person to come over and apologize. But as for Thousand Creations, he excused him. If this was someone who listened to others, then they would have fixed his terrible fault of stealing long ago. Do you want to level with us?" Blue River asked. "No need, leveling by myself is fine," Ye Xiu said. "Actually, we didn't come over to level," Blue River said. "Oh," Ye Xiu thought. The day was going to end soon. It wasn't possible that Blue River and the others hadn't reached the entry limit for the Boneyard Dungeon. If they weren't there for dungeon clearing or leveling, then could it be Blood Gunner Yag? Blue River said. Sure enough. Ye Xiu confirmed his guess. Blood Gunner Yag was Boneyard's wild boss. Although wild bosses respawned, they were even more valuable than hidden bosses because this boss would only respawn 3 times every week. Wild bosses also had their own leaderboards. There were first clears and also the kill number. The first clear could only be given to one party. The kill number was the same as clear records. The leaderboards would show the first 3 ranks. Currently, there hadn't been any wild boss kills in the 10th server. Currently, there were only 2 in their level range. One was Boneyard's Blood Gunner Yag, and the other was Frost Forest's Goblin Merchant Lorraine. The beginner village didn't have any wild bosses. Ye Xiu also had requirements for wild bosses, but these things could only be discovered and not sought. Ye Xiu wouldn't vainly attempt it alone. He had originally planned on getting the items from wild bosses from the markets, but if he happened to come across one, then he might as well try. But the most important part for killing wild bosses was never to kill it, it was to steal it. The players who came to kill wild bosses were the more dangerous enemies. Although wild bosses were difficult in the end, they were only system monsters. Experienced players had the ability to kill it without dying, but every time a wild boss was killed, there would always be dead players. This was all from the chaos between everyone fighting to kill it. Although Ye Xiu had the ability to fight it, there was no way he could single-handedly steal the boss from an entire guild. Item drops from bosses were calculated differently from small monsters. Wild bosses had the most terrifying amount of health among bosses of the same level and needed a long duration of heavy damage output. If the first hit and last hit counted for, of the experience and items, then no one would want to bitterly do all of the work in the middle. Thus, wild bosses completely relied on total damage to determine the share. No matter how strong a player was, there was no way he could do more damage than an entire party. Brother, are you interested in taking a look? Blue River continued. Okay, Ye Xiu gladly accepted. Blue River laughed brightly and sent a party invite over. After Lord Grimm joined their party, he said regretfully, "If I knew earlier, then it would have been better if you hadn't left the guild." In Glory, after leaving a guild, a player couldn't join a new guild until 5 days later.